Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. The signs might have been there at her work event in September, celebrating a new account, though I don't know much about banking. Looking back, it seemed innocent at the time. Things changed later, which made me think about that party. I met Gerald, the new person Cheryl was helping at the bank. He seemed fine, a little younger than us and somewhat confident, which is common with youth. I might have been like that before I met Cheryl. I grew up on a farm, which was a lot of fun as a kid. I loved running around and later learned to use different machines, which gave me confidence. But I realized farming was tough as an adult, so I switched to engineering. I worked as a project manager for a company that makes farm machinery, blending my farming knowledge with engineering. I met Cheryl at a friend's party, and we clicked. We got married 18 months later. Cheryl worked in banking, life was good, Cheryl was 28, I was 29, and we were talking about starting a family. After being married for 6 years, it felt like the right time. Our parents thought so too. We had bought a fixer-upper 3-bedroom house about 6 years ago, with help from our parents and a discount on a mortgage. The renovations were nearly done. One spare room was already looking like a nursery, which was always our plan. We did most of the work ourselves. It took time, but we turned this house into our dream home. We loved it. At the party, I noticed Cheryl and Gerald were dancing together a bit too long, and I felt ignored, enough that others noticed. I mentioned this to Cheryl. She immediately apologized, saying she hadn't noticed and that Gerald was new and still getting to know people. I replied, "He won't meet many people if he spends all his time dancing with you." She looked at me, smiled, and said, "You're right. I'll tell him." We were chatting with her friend Dee, who also worked at the bank and helped new staff. Dee was currently single, and I found it hard to keep up with her dating life since she was more of Cheryl's friend than mine. I needed to go to the restroom, and on my way back I planned to grab some drinks. When I came out, Dee was alone while Cheryl was again dancing with Gerald. It was a slow dance, and they were close to each other, which bothered me. I went towards them, feeling fed up. Dee stepped in front of me and asked me to dance, noticing I was upset. She said, "It's just a dance, don't worry." I replied, "He's dancing with a married woman. You're single. Why isn't he dancing with you or other women here to get to know them?" She hesitated in her response, but just then, Cheryl looked over and saw me. She stepped away from Gerald and came over with a smile, holding out her hands. "Come on, it's your turn." I took her in my arms and whispered, "I didn't know we were taking turns. I thought we came to celebrate together." She gently pushed me back a little so she could see my face. "I'm sorry," she said. "He asked me to dance, and I couldn't say no." "Yes, you could. I told you how I felt. Dee is single. Why isn't he dancing with her or mingling with others?" She moved back into my embrace and gave me a friendly touch on my cheek. "You're right. No more dancing for anyone but you tonight, but you have to promise me you'll have at least one dance with Dee." "Okay if I must," she giggled. When the next dance started, we moved apart a bit. She soon guided me off the floor. I had my needed dance with Dee while keeping an eye on Cheryl. Before long, Gerald appeared next to her. He reached out his hand, but she shook her head. They stood close as he leaned in to talk to her, but she didn't seem to respond. After Dee and I finished, Gerald turned to leave as soon as he noticed us coming. I saw Cheryl watch him until we got closer, then she smiled at me, which caught my attention. Later, I noticed Gerald at the bar waiting for his drink. I excused myself and made my way through the crowd, saying I just wanted a word and wasn't ordering anything, which drew some annoyed sounds that I ignored. Standing beside Gerald, I said, "Be careful around my wife." He looked at me and replied, "She's a grown woman. She can choose who she dances with." Sorry if that came out wrong. She has helped me a lot, and I was just thanking her for that. But I hear you, and I apologize. Would you like a drink? No, thank you. His comments surprised me. He nodded and turned back to the bar. I headed back to Cheryl and Dee. About 10 minutes later, Gerald approached us. He looked at me and asked, "Do you mind?" As he extended his hand to Cheryl. Before I could respond, Cheryl said, "I think I have danced enough with you. You should meet other people. All my dances are with my husband for the rest of the evening." Gerald smiled and nodded gently, glancing at Dee as if noticing her for the first time. He held out his hand to her, and they walked onto the dance floor. Cheryl slipped her arm through mine, leaned in, and whispered, "I'm sorry if I upset you. I didn't realize I was paying so much attention to him. If I've annoyed you, would you like to go home so I can make it up to you?" She smiled warmly. "That sounds like a great idea," I said. She took my hand and led me toward the exit, waving goodbye to Dee as we left. On our way out, Cheryl stepped into the restroom. She was quick, and when she returned, she was smiling brightly. She held on to me while we waited for a taxi. As she slid into the seat, her dress shifted a bit, but I expected her to adjust it, and she didn't. Once the taxi started moving, she took my hand and placed it on her knee, hinting we could begin our evening a bit earlier than planned. She leaned in close and whispered, "I'm sorry for not giving you the attention you deserve." Her voice had a warm tone, and her eyes said everything else. We shared a few quiet laughs during the ride home, lost in the moment. The drive felt longer than usual, filled with a silent energy between us. Once we were inside, she turned to me and said sincerely, "I love you. I've missed you." There wasn't any need for more words. We held each other close, letting our connection speak for itself. I wrapped my arms around her, being careful because she sometimes loses her balance. She smiled at me and took my hand, guiding me gently toward the stairs. Before we knew it, we were in the bedroom, and she encouraged me to lie back on the bed. I appreciated the way she looked up at me with warmth in her eyes. Sensing my excitement, she playfully suggested, "I think we should both get comfortable." It didn't take long to settle in. She lay back, and I joined her. I knew what made her happy, so I paid attention and was gentle. I leaned on my elbows, kissing her neck and enjoying quiet moments together. I felt her start to relax and wrap her arms around me. We shared a peaceful moment, enjoying our connection. After a while, Cheryl went to get 2 glasses of wine, and we enjoyed a nice moment while sipping our drinks. "I feel a bit bad for leaving the party early," I said to her. Cheryl looked up at me and responded, "Not me. I enjoyed our little adventures. The thrill of maybe getting caught was exciting. If you keep having me just inside the front door like that, I might have to suggest some changes." It was not the first time we had joked around like this. We finished our wine, held each other close, and went to sleep. I woke up first in the morning, made tea, and took a cup to Cheryl. As I passed her bag, her phone chimed with a text message. I recognized it was from Dee. I brought it to her, and she accepted the tea with a smile. Looking at her phone, she said, "Wow, Dee spent the night with Gerald. That's surprising. I didn't think he liked her." I replied, "No, he seemed more interested in you than in Dee." Cheryl continued, "I just helped him out. He's used to personal banking, not commercial. He's switched banks too, so we have different systems. I think he's figured out most of it, but he's having trouble with one part. He mentioned how thankful he was." "He seems okay. Just be careful," I said, holding back my feelings about him, something I couldn't quite place, just a feeling of caution. We had a nice weekend, and the following week went by normally. On Friday, when Cheryl got home, she asked if we could go out with Dee and Gerald the next evening. I had no problem with that. We had fun together. I didn't change my mind about Gerald. He was all right. He could be funny at times, laughed in all the right places, and made sure to join in. He mostly paid attention to Dee, who liked him quite a bit. I suppose you could say he was a good-looking guy, not that I had a strong opinion about what women found attractive. We settled into a routine, going out every 2 or 3 weekends. Gerald was fine, but I felt a bit unsure about him. He wasn't a close friend, not someone I would play golf with, but someone I would be happy to help if needed. After about 2 months of going out as a group, I started to notice how Gerald would look at Cheryl. His gaze would linger, and a small smile would appear on his face. Cheryl didn't seem to notice, but it bothered me. I began to pay closer attention to Cheryl, and after a few weeks, I noticed her looking back at Gerald. I tried to remember if anything else seemed off, but there wasn't. No change of clothes, no late nights at work, no secretive behavior with her phone, the passcode hadn't changed, and no strange happenings at all. I thought I was just being paranoid. I didn't believe anything had happened between them. They wouldn't have had a chance to get closer. especially with Dee and Gerald being a couple. But I was determined to step in before things could go further. We had just returned from an outing with Gerald, Dee, and a few other colleagues from the bank. I had noticed a few exchanged looks between them, but nothing too obvious, and I doubted anyone else had picked up on it. They seemed to share a good bond, sometimes laughing at inside jokes. It wasn't a late night, and I was making a cup of cocoa. We were sitting in the lounge when I said to Cheryl, "You seem to be getting along well with Gerald. How is his training going?" "Oh, it's almost finished. There are a few things he is still trying to understand, but he is handling the rest quite well. He has some trouble with the changing rates for different loans. It's mostly the risk calculations that confuse him." "What about in your personal life? I noticed you two were laughing a lot, often forgetting the others around you, like you had a special connection." "Well, he is funny, and we have been working closely together. Why do you ask?" I might have been a bit dramatic. "You were often talking to each other and ignoring the rest of us, like we weren't there. I wouldn't be surprised if some people think you are too friendly with Gerald." She set down her cocoa and looked at me seriously. "I would never do that to you. You don't think that, do you?" "Well, you seem really drawn to him. Do you find him attractive?" "Yes, he's a good-looking guy. He's funny and nice to be around. But he's just a friend like Dee. Besides, why would he be interested in me? He's with Dee." "Okay, maybe I'm overthinking it. You know how important trust is to me. If there's any dishonesty, it would change everything." She moved closer to me, holding my knees and looking up at me. "My dear, I love you. I would never betray your trust. Yes, I think he's attractive, and if things were different, I might have considered it. But I'm committed to you, and so is he." She paused, held my hands, and squeezed them. "I know you had a rough experience with a past girlfriend. I would never want to cause you that kind of pain." Standing up, she reached out her hands. "Come on. Let me show you how much I care about you." She tilted her head and gave me a smile that I loved. I took her hands and followed her upstairs. It was a special night. I woke up at 3 o'clock needing to use the bathroom. When I got back to bed, I thought about our earlier conversation. I believed her, but if I warned her about the possibility of an affair, they might hide it better. I decided to pay closer attention, just to ease my mind. I kept watching, but like before our talk about her and Gerald, everything seemed fine. For the next 4 weeks, things went well, but in the 4th week, Cheryl became unusually quiet. I kept asking her what was wrong, and she said it was nothing, just a few small issues at work. We hadn't had many special moments that week. While there was the usual warmth, I missed the little gestures, the smiles, and the friendly touches as she walked by. She seemed distracted, worried about her, and considering her mention of work problems, I called Dee to see if she noticed anything unusual. She said that Cheryl seemed a bit quiet, but nothing seemed wrong apart from that. To gently check in, I asked how she and Gerald were doing. She laughed and said he was just as annoying as usual. I asked her if he was the one. She giggled and said she didn't think so, but he was fun, though a bit distracted often. She wished he was the one since she was starting to care for him. She planned to enjoy their time together while he was around, but hoped he would stay so they could work on their relationship. Otherwise, she would lean on me and Cheryl for support. I couldn't find anything wrong with Gerald. After thinking for a few days, I wanted to lift Cheryl's spirits and show her I cared. I planned to finish work early on Friday to surprise her at the bank and take her out to lunch. During breakfast that morning, I asked if she had lunch plans, and she said no. I wanted to make my feelings clear in front of her colleagues, Gerald and Dee. I picked out some flowers in her favorite color from the store. When I got to the bank, I saw Gerald and Cheryl leave together, walking down the road to a pub. I dropped the flowers in a bin nearby and followed them in. I found a spot in the pub to sit and pulled out my phone to seem busy. The pub was lively, filled with people enjoying their Friday after work. Cheryl and Gerald were chatting over dinner, but 2 things caught my eye. I noted them down to discuss with Cheryl later when I showed her the video I took. While I had my phone out, I decided to text Cheryl, asking what she wanted for dinner or if we should go out. She picked up her phone, typed something, and sent me a message. "No, stay in. I'm out at the moment having lunch with Gerald. I will explain later." So she wasn't hiding anything. I watched as they left the pub. They didn't hold hands or walk closely. I noticed Cheryl glance at the flowers I had thrown away. seeing the card that read, "Love you." If she recognized my handwriting, she didn't show it. When I got home early, I started cleaning the garage and found one of my old toys that I used to scare off animals on the farm, mostly rats, and sometimes rabbits. I remembered that some of those rabbits ended up for dinner. I called my toy Terminator. Remembering those times on the farm brought a smile to my face. I went outside and practiced with it, enjoying the old thrill of hitting a target from a distance. I had grown bigger and stronger and quickly got the hang of it again. I had to be careful, though. The toy needed some care. Cheryl came home from work around her usual time. I decided to make scrambled eggs on toast since she already had lunch. She liked the idea and said, "That's perfect. I just had lunch with Gerald. I'll tell you about it after dinner. How was your day?" I replied, "I finished early and had tasks to catch up on. I wanted to surprise you for lunch, but when I got to your work, you weren't there." "Oh, I'm sorry. If you had told me you were coming, I would have let Gerald know," she responded. As we sat down to eat, my curiosity grew. What was so important about going out to dinner with Gerald instead of having lunch in the office? She explained, "He's having trouble adjusting to our work style. He can't quite grasp the interest rates and risks, so I wanted to talk to him before the weekend to give him time to think things over." I didn't mention that I had recorded them earlier. I observed how they interacted. Cheryl looked at me in a certain way, and when she placed her hand on the table, Gerald lightly touched it, and she didn't pull away. I decided to keep that information to myself for the time being. After talking, she seemed to feel better, and I did too. She suggested starting a family with a warm smile. I agreed and tried to share her hope for the future. On Saturday morning, Cheryl was up before me, but I got out of bed not too long after. We had a list of things to do over the weekend, and I wanted Sunday to be a time for relaxing. When I went downstairs, tea and toast were ready, along with a pot of strawberry jam. I sat down and poured tea for both of us, adding just a splash of milk. Cheryl looked like she hadn't slept well. Her face was serious. I began to feel uneasy. "Darling, I need to tell you something," she said. I braced myself for what was coming. "Gerald crossed a line yesterday at lunch. He admitted he has feelings for me and wants to take things further, thinking I might feel the same way." As she twirled her hair nervously, I sensed this conversation would be tough. She kept looking right at me. "I won't lie. I do have some feelings for him, as I mentioned before. If he weren't with Dee and if I were not married to you, maybe I would consider those feelings." Cheryl looked serious. "Sweetheart, it's okay to have feelings for more than one person. You told me about your admiration for two girls in college and how you chose one to get to know better. This is not exactly the same, but it's similar. I'm attracted to him, but I love you. You don't need to worry. I won't betray your trust. I chose you 7 years ago when you asked me to marry you, and I still choose you. Please don't worry." She reached across the table and took my hand. I told Gerald that his feelings were not appropriate. There are no rules about personal relationships at work, but if he doesn't stop, he'll have to report him. That's why I've been distracted this week. If he doesn't change soon, I will suggest he look for another job. The problem is, there aren't any openings in our area, so it's hard to decide. I'm sorry, my love, but I have to be honest with you. I believed her. This nearly explained the looks and gestures I had noticed before. Still, I would stay cautious and might need to talk with Gerald. It seemed wise for him to move on, or at least keep his distance from Cheryl. The next week, I asked Cheryl how Gerald was acting towards her. She said he had kept his distance, only approaching her for work matters. She felt he took her warning seriously, which was reassuring because she was clear about reporting him if needed. She also mentioned that Dee seemed a little distracted. I received the parts I needed for my project early that week. It took a little time to fix it up, but I was back to practicing and hadn't lost any of my skills. On Saturday, we woke up early. I helped Cheryl tidy the house and we did some shopping together. By lunchtime, we had finished all our chores and looked forward to a nice afternoon, maybe a walk in the park, and an evening relaxing at home. After 1 o'clock, Cheryl got a message from Dee inviting us out that night with her and Gerald. Cheryl replied that she preferred to stay in with me for some drinks and an early night. I supported her choice. We enjoyed a warm evening together, had a bit of a lean Sunday morning, and shared a relaxing breakfast. I had a few tasks in the garage, like organizing my tools and putting my project away. About 11, Cheryl came into the garage with her phone. It's Dee. Do you have time to talk? I nodded. Go ahead, Dee. You're on speaker. Dee's voice sounded different. Sorry you couldn't come last night. Gerald wanted to talk. He was hoping for Cheryl's advice about his future and would have liked John's thoughts too. He also said he wanted to say sorry to John but didn't say why. Do you know John? Has he upset you? No, I replied. Cheryl raised an eyebrow while looking at me. It wasn't completely true. I couldn't entirely blame Gerald for having feelings for my wife. However, telling her about it and hinting that he wanted more wasn't right. I was determined to handle it, firmly if I had to. Dee continued. Cheryl, we know Gerald is having a tough time. He says you've helped him a lot. He knows he needs guidance on what to do next, as he feels stuck in his current job. She paused for a moment. It's too bad. He'll miss him. He's fun to be around, and I was hoping things might develop. Do you think you could give him a call to talk it over? A face-to-face chat would be better. Looking at me, Cheryl said, I'll have to think about it and see what John thinks. Thanks. I appreciate it. I might have a few more evenings with him to see if we can work something out if he doesn't move too far. I'm starting to like him. Sorry, Dee, there's a job, but it's in South Wales, about 150 miles away. I made a few calls Friday afternoon. He could try to go back to his old bank, which is only about 20 miles away. I mentioned that to him before we left work. Please, Cheryl, see what you can do for him. A local job would be good for me, too. I'll do what I can. I'll talk to him and get back to you if I hear anything. Hopefully Gerald will call you. Bye for now. Cheryl hung up. We went into the kitchen and she started making coffee. Handing me my cup, she asked, What should I do? I saw her think for a moment. Then she answered her own question. I can give him the options, but he needs to decide about his future, whether to move to Swansea with our bank or try to get his old job back in Winchester. I'm not sure if they've filled his position yet. I can help him think through the pros and cons of each choice. I know which one Dee would prefer. She looked at me. Would you mind if I visited him to talk? I had been thinking. It's your choice, I said, but I'd rather you didn't. He's become a friend, not just a coworker, and he might be feeling upset, as will you. He has already shared his feelings for you, and you have told me you feel the same way. With all the emotions involved, I don't think it is a good idea. Do you trust me? She asked quietly. I was uncertain, but I knew my answer mattered. If I said no, it could harm our relationship. If I said yes, but didn't mean it, she would notice. So I found a middle ground. I don't trust Gerald not to take advantage of the situation. My darling, I may have feelings for him, but I love you. Trust me. I would never hurt you. We are starting a family. Why would I risk that? Okay, if you go, should I come with you? Dee mentioned he wanted to apologize to me for something. You could, but I think your presence might distract him from what he really needs to talk about. I'm asking you to trust me. Nothing will happen. It's just a chat to show him support and help him make a decision. I stood there, leaning against the kitchen table. She walked over to me and gently touched my arm. Looking at my watch, she said, It's just after 11:45. It won't take long to talk to him about his choices. I will quickly change out of my work clothes and be at his place right after 12. I promise I'll be back home before 1. She smiled and added, Then we can get takeout for dinner and have an early night to focus on our family, okay? I nodded but said, Just be careful. I won't lie. I'm a bit worried. She smiled again, reassuring me. You don't need to worry. Trust me, I love you. With that, she headed upstairs to change. I followed her and saw her in jeans and a comfy sweater. I felt a little frustrated and decided to use that energy for practice. I guessed she would leave Gerald's around 1:45 to keep her promise. She might be a few minutes late. I checked her phone location. Gerald lived in a nice flat across from the park, about 10 minutes away by car. As the clock neared 1, I noticed she was still there. I sent her a text to remind her of her promise, but there was no reply. After 1 o'clock, I called her, but it went to voicemail after several rings. I left a short message, feeling disappointed. What else had she not done? I tried reaching Gerald too, but that went to voicemail as well. I realized if they were ignoring their phones, they would probably not hear the doorbell either. I didn't want to cause a scene by throwing stones at his windows, which would likely be ignored. So I decided to take my bike and head to the park across from Gerald's flat. When I arrived, I noticed Cheryl's car parked down the street. Parking was tricky there. I secured my bike near the park entrance facing Gerald's flat and thought about how to get their attention. I noticed the front door open. Cheryl and Gerald were talking inside. He hugged her tightly, and she seemed to push him away as if telling him something. I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. In that moment, I felt my marriage was over. They stepped out and walked toward Cheryl's car. Gerald reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. I wondered if she was hesitant about showing affection in public. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out a small tool from my pocket. There was a space between the parked cars, so I positioned myself. Focusing, I aimed and took a shot that hit Gerald in the side. He reacted quickly, covering the spot with his hand. I heard a sound as the tool hit his hand. Before I knew it, my instincts took over, and I aimed again. I quickly fired another shot that just grazed his shoulder, and then another that made him stumble slightly back. I aimed for the center of his chest again when he leaned forward, and my next shot hit him in the side of the face, causing him to fall. I noticed I was out of bullets and saw the small metal balls on the floor where they had bounced off him. I quickly untied my shoe, took it off, and slipped a magnet inside before putting it back on. It was a tricky move. I hurried across the road, limping. Cheryl was on her knees beside him, not paying attention to me. She was focused on her phone. I shuffled my feet, looking down to see the metal balls stuck to my shoe. I bent down and took one from Gerald's clothes. Cheryl was on the phone. I glanced at her and confirmed what I had seen earlier. I walked away slowly, trying not to lose any of the metal balls. When I got to the other side of the road, I gathered the balls and took the magnet out of my shoe. It was a bit uncomfortable, but if anyone saw me, they would just see a limping old man, which is how I felt. I rode home gently, thinking about how she would explain what had happened. Cheryl must have received my messages. About 15 minutes later, she called. She sounded upset and short of breath. "Sorry I'm late. There's been an incident. Gerald's been hurt, and I'm on my way to the hospital with him." I paused for a moment. "John, are you there?" she asked. "Yes, but not for long unless you come home right now. You have a choice. Be here in half an hour or don't bother coming back at all. You have another choice to make, your friend or your husband." "He's not my friend." That was all I heard before I hung up. I needed help and advice, but first, I needed a cup of tea. Coffee wouldn't do. I was still on the phone when, 20 minutes later, Cheryl burst through the door. I laid down the phone without hanging up. "I'm so sorry, darling. I didn't hear the phone, and I missed your message. We lost track of time talking. You promised me you'd be home by 1. When I checked your location at 5 past, you were still there. So much for your promises. You both were so wrapped up in conversation that you missed my call and my text. Where was Gerald's phone? I left him messages too. Is that what you call it these days, talking?" A worried look crossed her face. "We were just discussing some options he had." I replied, "What options are there to move to Wales or Winchester?" Her expression changed. "What are you saying? We haven't done anything wrong." "Oh, was it just a talk then?" I could hear more noises from the phone. I ignored them. I was tired of this. I raised my voice. "Standing right here in this kitchen, you told me, and I quote, 'You have nothing to worry about. Please trust me. I love you.'" I paused. "Cheryl, show me your left hand." Her face dropped, and she shook her head. I spoke more firmly. "Lift up your hand and show it to me." The sounds from the phone went quiet. Cheryl flinched. She had never seen me this upset. She slowly lifted her hand. I asked loudly, "Could you please tell me where your wedding and engagement rings are? I hope they aren't on Gerald's bedside table." She shook her head. "It was just a—" Then she sank into a chair and started to cry. She looked up at me and said through her tears, "I'm sorry. He asked if we could be close just once." I told him I was married and showed him my rings. He took my hand, removed the rings, and said, "For the next hour, you're not married." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I shouldn't have done it. Please forgive me. He'll make it right." She reached into her pocket and took out her rings, starting to put them back on. I took them from her. "You lost the right to wear those when you were unfaithful." I picked up the phone. "Harry, Margaret, you need to come get your daughter. Ill helper pack. I heard Harry say, "We're getting in the car now. We'll be there in about half an hour." I hung up. My parents. You told my parents. No, actually, you did. There was loud knocking at the front door and the doorbell rang repeatedly. Someone was in a hurry. I opened the door. It was Dee. She rushed past me into the kitchen. "Can one of you take me to the hospital? Gerald's been hurt. My car won't start." I took my car keys from my pocket and handed them to her. "Take mine, we're busy." Then she noticed the tension in the room. "What's going on here? It feels so tense." She looked at Cheryl and asked, "Why are you upset? What happened?" "We know Gerald's been hurt. Cheryl was just there," I said. Cheryl started to cry again. "What were you doing there? How did he get hurt?" "It seems she went to talk to him like you asked, but things got out of hand." Dee looked worried. "You didn't. Has my boyfriend. You were involved with him?" Cheryl nodded slowly. Dee's disappointment was clear as she handed my keys back to me. "I won't need these anymore, thank you." With that, she stormed out, leaving the door open. I poured my cold tea down the sink and poured another cup that was only warm. "So, you wanted to get closer to him?" I asked. "No, but I do care about him, and he's not well. I felt sorry for him. It was wrong. I'm truly sorry." Tears streamed down her face. "Why did you let him take your rings?" She looked down and spoke softly. "I don't know. I just couldn't seem to stop him." I explained that on Monday, I planned to suggest he switch from commercial to public banking. It meant a new branch, and I had found him a spot in Swansea, quite far from here. He could also try to get his old job back in Winchester. He said he would accept the Swansea position. Then he stepped closer and asked if we could spend one afternoon together. I reminded him I was married and showed him my rings. He gently took my hand, and after taking off my wedding and engagement rings, he said, "Look, you're not married now. Just once. Let's see what we feel for each other before we part." I felt sympathy for him because of his situation. I admitted I had feelings, and in that moment, I let my emotions take over. I regretted it. "You knew what you were doing," I said. "You wanted to show you care, at least for a little while. Did you need his affection because mine isn't enough?" She shook her head. I tried to keep my frustration down. "How would I know it would just be once? If he went to Winchester, would you sneak off to him? And those times you looked off, thinking of moments we shared and comparing me to him, what then?" "I wouldn't do that. I love you. You might love me, but you have feelings for him too. You can't have both." "I don't want both. I want you. I care for him, but love only you." "You can say that now after spending time with both of us. Was he not what you expected, and now you want me?" "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" I asked, but I had other worries. Quietly, she said, "It was only supposed to be once. You would never know." "Oh, come on. Are you really that forgetful? You said you would be back in an hour, but you were still at his place when that time was up. You were with someone you said you had feelings for, and it sounded like he felt the same way. Neither of you picked up your phones. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? The worry must have shown on your face." She shook her head. I told her to pack because her parents would be here in about 10 minutes. If she didn't do it, I would, but she just stayed still. So I went to our bedroom and started tossing clothes into a suitcase. Once I packed what I could, I carried it to the front door. Just as I got there, her parents walked in. Margaret hugged me, and I could tell she had been crying. Harry was nearby, looking sad, and noticed the suitcase. They followed me to the kitchen, where Cheryl was quiet and didn't acknowledge them. "I'm sorry, please forgive me for my mistake. Just give me one more chance," she begged, her words rushed. I struggled to keep my anger in check. It wasn't easy. "You come back so soon after everything, and you think I will just forgive you? I need some space." I think her parents could see my frustration. Harry helped her out while Margaret picked up her suitcase. I shut the door after them, feeling overwhelmed, and poured myself a drink. The next morning, I was startled awake by the doorbell and knocking, which made my headache worse. I had fallen asleep on the couch. If it was Cheryl, I really did not want to talk, but the noise wouldn't stop unless I answered the door, so I got up and opened it. Dee was standing there with a packet in her hand. My eyes struggled to focus. "I brought strong painkillers. I thought you might need them," she said quietly. She was right. I went back to the settee, covering my ears to block out the sound from the kitchen. Suddenly, a glass of water and 2 pills were in front of me. Knowing I needed them, I took the pills and swallowed them with the water. I thought a gin and tonic would have been nice instead, light on the tonic. I lay back down. After a while, I felt a gentle nudge on my shoulder and saw a cup of tea in front of me. I drank it once it had cooled down. I was starting to feel better. When I sat up, I noticed Dee sitting across from me. She looked like she hadn't had a good night either. She spoke softly, which was nice. "You should call work today. You're not in any shape to go in or to drive. You might also get a visit from the police soon. They came by yesterday evening about Gerald. Hez seriously hurt and may have been attacked. They said he felt like he was hit by someone he couldn't see. I told them what I knew about Gerald and Cheryl, so they might come asking about where you were yesterday. You were here, right?" I wasn't sure whether to respond or just nod, which felt easier. I chose to give a gentle nod, even though it didn't feel completely true. I hadn't been that drunk. We sat together for about an hour. Once I felt a bit better, I found my phone and called work to let them know I wouldn't be in. After I finished, a fresh cup of tea was waiting for me. "Are you going to divorce her?" Dee asked. "Yes," I said. "She broke my trust and gave her love to someone else. She caused you pain, too." I shared the conversation I had before Cheryl left, and when she returned, I told her how Cheryl wasn't wearing her wedding and engagement rings. I repeated Cheryl's reasons and excuses. Dee snorted. "I knew they liked each other, but it's just like him to push her into it. He's really good at convincing people to do things they don't want to do. He can be very convincing." She smiled a little. "But I agree with you. It was her choice and she made the wrong one. She could have said no. Do you want the name of a good divorce lawyer?" "I don't know. I need to find out how to get a divorce. I've never thought about this before. You don't have kids, so it should be easier." The doorbell rang. "Do you want me to get that?" I nodded, and Dee went to the door. I heard someone say, "Hello again, Miss Harris. Is Mr. Smedley here?" Dee peeked outside and said, "It's the police. Are you ready for this?" I wasn't sure I was, but it was best to deal with it. "Yes, please let them in." I invited them to sit and asked if they wanted a drink. I could hear Dee moving in the kitchen. They both said no. The younger officer, looking quite new, began, "Since Miss Harris is here, I assume you know about the incident involving Mr. Gerald Harper yesterday. It seems your wife was present. We spoke with her, and Mr. Harper mentioned her name. We need to clear you from our inquiries. Can you tell us where you were yesterday, around 1 p.m.? If my wife was there, she can say who was involved. She can say it wasn't me." "She couldn't identify the person," he replied. That made sense to me. Yes, I was here, waiting for my wife to get home. She should have arrived by 1, and when she hadn't by 1:30, I called her. She got here about 1:45. Unfortunately, there's no one to confirm I was here. I was alone. Dee returned with tea and biscuits for me. I wasn't sure I could eat anything, even biscuits. The older officer asked boldly, "What is your relationship with Miss Harris?" I heard Dee nearly choke on her tea. We never thought of each other in that way, and I didn't see her much before Gerald came along. I explained that she was my wife's best friend and had come to my house to get a ride to the hospital. I mentioned that Cheryl was in a tough situation, and then Dee left. She visited this morning to see how things were going. She found me feeling very bad and said the police might come. They seemed satisfied with this. As I showed them to the door, I asked about Gerald's injuries. They told me he had an injured groin area but did not go into detail. He also had broken bones in his right hand, a dislocated shoulder, a broken collarbone, 2 broken ribs, and a fractured jaw with bruising on his face. They mentioned he would stay in the hospital for about a week, that his jaw would need to be wired until it healed, and the doctors were worried about his groin injury. Dee made me some toast, but I pushed it away. I wasn't ready for food. I sat down at the computer and searched for Divorce Laws UK. I opened another window and searched for divorce lawyers near me. While I was doing this, another cup of tea appeared next to me. I had enough tea. I wanted something stronger, but I didn't want to be rude and turn it down. I took notes based on what I found online and looked over at Dee, who was sitting on the couch just watching me. I thought she would have gone home by now. "John, do you mind if I stay? I don't want to be alone right now, and I think you shouldn't be either." Later that evening, I got a call from Margaret, and she asked how I was. I told her I was still waking up from a bad hangover. She said she understood and would call the next day to check on me. I thought she wanted to see if I was ready to talk. I definitely wasn't feeling good. Dee stayed over and slept on the couch. The next day at work, I wasn't very helpful. Everyone could see something was bothering me, but didn't want to ask. That evening, I applied to the courts for a divorce. Now I had to wait to see if Cheryl would oppose it. If she did, I would need to find a lawyer. Dee gave me the name of one she liked, but I didn't ask how she knew it was trustworthy. When I got home on Thursday, Margaret was waiting for me outside my house. I invited her in, but she didn't want anything to drink. We sat at the kitchen table. I opened my mouth to ask what she wanted, as if I couldn't guess. She held up her hands, and I fell silent again. John, Harry, and I care about you. While we want to help, the choice is yours. We hope you can work things out. That is where we believe you belong. Yes, she made mistakes, and I won't excuse what she did. We will support whatever decision you make. But could we meet soon to talk about this? We truly wish for you two to remain together, but we understand that may not be possible. I don't know, Margaret. It still hurts from what she said and her choices. But yes, tomorrow works. Come by at 6, and I can spend the weekend trying to move on from this. She didn't react to my strong feelings, but gave me an encouraging gesture before leaving. When I got home from work on Friday, I found Cheryl, Margaret, and Harry in my kitchen. I had forgotten Cheryl still had keys to the place. I could see tea being poured and smelled strong coffee. Harry began, "John, we've thought a lot about this. We're not sure if you have a plan or what you want to do." Margaret continued, "As I mentioned, we wish to see you both together again. Is there any way to find a solution? Maybe counseling for her. She will need your support, even if it's not directly for you. From what we see, you have done nothing wrong." Cheryl spoke softly. "He hasn't. It was all me." It was Harry's turn. "Is there anything we can do to help? She knows she made a mistake and says she will do anything to make it right with you. You will need to figure out what that means. We're not asking you to forgive her right away, but could you give her a second chance? Just talk, the two of you." I noticed tears in Margaret's eyes, and I was afraid to upset her more. I drank my tea and stood behind my chair. While I've been trying to deal with the pain of her betrayal, I did some thinking. The hurt is just too great. She chose to be with someone else. Cheryl looked at me, her voice shaky. "I have to admit I let him get close, and that was wrong. He never had my love. I had some feelings for him, but that wasn't real. My heart belongs to you." "That's a strange way to show your feelings for me," I replied. "You being with another man doesn't feel like love." "No, it wasn't about love. It was a mistake," she said, not wanting to say more. I had heard enough. "If it was just a mistake, then say it." Margaret chimed in. "That's not fair, John, but if that's what it was, it's in the past now." I was about to speak, but Margaret continued. "Yes, it was wrong. I won't defend what she did. She should not have done it. But it was a one-time thing, and she promises us she won't do it again." She took a breath. "Yes, I know she promised you in front of everyone 6 years ago, but she has learned from her mistakes and won't do it again." Frustration bubbled up inside me towards Margaret, which really wasn't fair to her. They were on my side, trying to help, but it just wasn't working. I had something to say in response to her last statement. Sure, she will learn from her mistakes. She'll just be careful not to get caught next time. I realized that sounded a bit harsh. Deep down, I believed she didn't mean to stray. Otherwise, she wouldn't have promised to be home before 1 o'clock. Something must have changed her mind, but it was too late now. She had made her choice, and it was enough to bring this issue to light. "I believe you will get an email about our divorce. Just respond, and in 26 weeks we can move on with our lives. We'll need to figure out how to split our things, the house, and all of that." I glanced at Margaret and Harry and added, "Sorry?" Then Cheryl started to cry. "Please don't divorce me. I'm sorry, it was a mistake." I began to feel calmer. "Okay, even if I agree it was a mistake, and I'm not saying I do, there were choices that led to it. You let certain actions happen. You could have stopped them but chose not to. You could have honored our vows and my trust in you, but you didn't." "Did you take precautions?" I asked. She slowly shook her head while her mother looked shocked. I could sense where this was heading. "So, there is a chance you could be expecting?" She nodded slightly. "And if you are, You wouldn't know if it was his or mine because we had talked about starting a family. Cheryl began to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. Right now, anything she said didn't matter. I looked at her firmly. I can stay married to someone who has broken my trust. Margaret understood that was it. Cheryl was crying, and Margaret helped her up and out of the front door. Harry hugged me and said nothing. We didn't need words. I went to check my stash of beer and gin. I had enough. The next Saturday morning, loud knocking woke me again. I went downstairs, glad to find I was actually in my bed this time. It was Dee again. She poked me in the chest. Margaret called. She thought you might do this. Then she walked past me. I moved to the couch, stepping over the leftover mess from last night. Suddenly, there was a hand in front of me, holding tablets and a glass of water. This is the last time I'm doing this. You need to take care of yourself. I nodded, but she kept going. She lectured me about how I was handling things. I was in a bit of a mess. Standing in front of me with her hands on her hips, looking down, she said loudly, which hurt my head, "Clean this place up. I'll be back tomorrow at 5, and you better have dinner ready as a thank you for the painkillers." Her tone softened a bit, but there was still a hard edge to it. "John, you are better than this. You need to get it together and move on. You have friends and family who can help, so please, get your head straight." As she walked to the front door, she turned back and said, "The best thing you can do now is to live your life in the best way you can with what you've learned." That stung a little as she left. Epilogue. I sat and thought about what she said. She was right. I cleaned up, shaved, took a shower, and made some plans for my life, including dinner for tomorrow. When she came, she brought wine. We talked about what happened and what we would do next. She mentioned that Margaret had told her about my talk with Cheryl. She understood how I felt. Dee visited a few times, and we went out together, sharing our thoughts over drinks. We never became romantically involved. We just didn't feel that way about each other. There was no connection. About a month after the event, a letter was delivered to me. When I opened it, I felt uneasy. The letter began with, "Dear John, I apologize for typing this. A letter like this should be handwritten, but am recovering from an injury to my right hand. I think it was a punishment for something I did before. I just don't know who caused it. All I know is that it hurts and made me reflect on my life, and I didn't like what I found." Now I recognized the writer. It was Gerald. He continued, "I hear you've started the divorce process with Cheryl. Please think it over." I couldn't read anymore. Anger bubbled up inside me. I refused to take advice from the man who had a role in my marriage failing. I tossed the letter on the kitchen table and made some coffee. Later that day, Dee came over and saw the letter I had thrown aside. "Did you read it?" she asked. "No, I won't listen to him after what he did to my life." She held out a letter of her own. "I have one too. I suspect yours is like mine. You really should read it." I picked up my letter, crumpled it, and tossed it in the bin before walking into the living room. Dee came in with 2 beers and we sat together chatting casually about our day. After I commented on her possibly being pregnant, I learned that Margaret and Harry had spoken to Cheryl. She didn't fight the divorce, and I arranged a mortgage to buy her half of the house. Strangely, Cheryl helped me get a good deal on the mortgage, some sort of staff discount. Later I found out she wasn't pregnant. Things just happened that way. The important thing was that she took a risk. 30 weeks later, I received the letter that informed me of my divorce. It was one of the saddest days of my life. I tried not to cry or lean on alcohol for comfort. Both were hard for me. Dee was there to support me. The next week, Margaret and Cheryl came over for a visit. I made them tea, and then Cheryl surprised me. "Even though I don't deserve it, can I have my rings back? They remind me of the good times we shared and of my mistakes. They have a negative connection for me. I don't need them. Do what you like with them." I found the rings and handed them to her. Margaret seemed to be there just to support Cheryl. As they left, Cheryl wanted to show some warmth, but I turned her down. However, I did accept a hug and a kiss on the cheek from her mother. It was time to embrace my single life, even though I wasn't excited about it. I learned online that slingshots could launch small projectiles at very high speeds. I wasn't sure how much damage a small ball would cause if it hit someone. I might have been exaggerating a bit. I just knew it would hurt. 18 months had passed since that weekend, and I had been divorced for almost a year. I was trying to move on. I had gone out with a few women and even formed close connections with a couple of them, but nothing lasted. There was no spark. I wasn't worried, though I was 30, in decent shape, owned my house, had a good job, and people told me I looked fine, so I still had time to find the one. I thought I found the one, but she did something that showed she wasn't right for me. I felt frustrated with myself. If I was moving on, why did I feel upset when I heard my ex-wife Cheryl laughing at the hotel bar? When I got to the Red Lion for my company's Christmas party that Friday evening, I saw on the board that Cheryl's bank was also having a Christmas party there, but in a different room. There was only one bar, though. I had planned to hang out at the bar, chat with some friends, and buy a few beers for people who helped me over the year. But with Cheryl's coworkers there, some of whom knew me, I figured that wouldn't be a good idea. Instead, I found a quiet spot in the function room where the party was held. I was between relationships, so a few of us gathered in the corner to talk. I danced a little with some women from the company, but mostly I chatted with my coworkers, especially Phil. He was the shop floor supervisor, and we had worked on several projects together during the year. We got along well and sometimes went out for beers. He was a good guy. When it was my turn to get a drink, I heard Cheryl laughing again. I couldn't help but turn to look at her. I was at the bar, and the bartender had noticed me and was preparing my drinks. I was trying to stay out of sight from Cheryl and our mutual friend Dee. Cheryl was standing with a group of young men, including Dee, who I learned had started being friends with her again. I was surprised because it was Dee's boyfriend that Cheryl had caused some trouble with. After everything, Dee and I had spent time together as friends, and she had been checking in on me after the divorce. Honestly, I wanted to make sure she was okay too, since losing her boyfriend and her best friend had affected her deeply. We both drank a lot during that time. She had helped me a great deal after everything. I owed her. I wondered why Dee had forgiven Cheryl. She said she understood what happened better and had chosen to forgive her. They might never be as close as they used to be, but she had moved on. I then saw Dee point towards me and make her way over, looking beautiful as she set her drink down. She walked a bit unevenly and had a carefree smile, which made me think she might have had a bit too much to drink. I was getting ready for the unexpected. We had separated on good terms. She even helped me get a fair mortgage rate so I could buy her half of the house. But we hadn't spoken much in the last 18 months. What she did when she reached me was a surprise. She wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "I'm glad to see you. I care about you." I could smell the alcohol on her breath, which was unusual for her. I noticed the 3 young men from earlier walking toward us, and Dee followed. Cheryl stepped back and stood beside me, linking her arm through mine and leaning against me. I felt uneasy but didn't want to be rude. I tried to stay calm even though I was a bit anxious. Dee introduced the guys. "This is Jeff, Mike, and Pete. They're trainees at the bank and were their trainers." I immediately didn't like Jeff. He seemed cocky. Looking at Cheryl, he said, "So who is this guy?" Cheryl responded firmly, "We've talked about this. Don't be rude." She appeared more composed now. "This is my ex-husband." At that moment, Jeff poked me in the chest and said, "So this is the guy then?" That was a mistake. My temper was easily sparked these days. I pushed Cheryl away and grabbed Jeffrey's jacket, pulling him closer. I raised my knee and accidentally made contact, causing him to grunt in surprise and fall to the floor. The people around the bar were so focused on getting the bartender's attention that they didn't notice what happened. Peter stood there shocked. I wiped my face and pulled Jeffrey's shirt, asking him, "Where did you hear that story?" He stumbled over his words, saying, "We figured it out. There were rumors about Cheryl and a guy named Gerald. We thought they had an affair. You and Cheryl divorced, and then Gerald left. It made sense." I replied, "Well, you didn't figure it all out. What about other possibilities? Maybe I was the one who cheated and Cheryl divorced me. There are many ways to see it." We had grown apart and decided to end our marriage. I brushed off the part about Gerald moving away. They actually had figured out a lot. I just didn't want anyone to know that Cheryl had been unfaithful and that Gerald had also been involved. As far as I knew, only Cheryl's parents, Dee, Gerald, and I knew the truth, and I wanted it to stay that way for everyone's sake. Well, maybe not for Gerald's. Looking around the busy bar, I hope no one noticed the commotion. The bartender gave me a strange look and shook his head. Mike helped Jeffrey back to his feet while holding a handkerchief to his nose. The whole thing took less than a minute. Dee stepped forward to Jeffrey. "You've been reminded about your behavior before. You should treat everyone as a customer. Everyone knows this is our bank's Christmas party. There's a sign at the door. Most people can tell you work for us. You've not represented us well. I'm not sure if management saw what happened, but they'll know by Monday morning. I suggest you and your friends leave." Jeffrey made a noise that sounded like, "He pushed me." Dee replied, "Then you shouldn't have insulted him." From what Cheryl and I saw, Jeffrey was just defending himself. It was 3 against 1, and I suggested they go. Thankfully, they did. I noticed the security staff following them out. The bartender then got my attention with the drinks I had ordered. "That will be 42.18, please." I was shocked. That's a lot for 6 pints of beer. As I handed over my card, the bartender said, "Thanks for that. Our security was coming over. I think the tall blonde in their group was trying to encourage your lady friend to drink more. They were buying shots and might have been trying to add them to her drink. I wasn't completely sure, so I asked security to check, but you got here first." I smiled and nodded, still surprised by the high price. I took the tray of beers back to my friends with Cheryl and Dee following me. My friends recognized Cheryl from company events. A couple of them raised an eyebrow. Phil noticed that Cheryl didn't have a drink, and Dee's was almost empty. Being more thoughtful than I was, he offered to get them drinks. Dee declined, saying she was driving, and suggested that Cheryl had enough for the night. Looking at Cheryl, I would probably agree, especially considering how many drinks she'd had. Cheryl then asked me to dance, and not wanting to be rude, I accepted. Phil asked Dee to dance, and she said yes. Cheryl held onto my arm as we made our way to the busy dance floor. She got very close to me, swaying a little, and I worried she might fall, so I gently supported her. She rested her head on my shoulder, which surprised me. When the dance ended, I helped her off the floor and back to our spot. Dee danced with Phil a couple of times before returning to us. She leaned in and whispered something to Cheryl. I couldn't hear it, but Cheryl nodded. Then Dee turned to me and softly said, "I'm sorry, John, but can we talk outside? There's a small issue." I wasn't sure what I could do, but since Dee was a friend, I decided to follow them, taking my drink with me. We found a quieter place, and Dee explained, "Cheryl isn't feeling well. She wants to go home, but there's a problem. Harry and Margaret have a Christmas party, and Cheryl can't show up like this. She can't come to my house either because my parents are visiting and there's no space." She chuckled a little at her own Christmas joke. "I know it's a bit much to ask, but can we go to your place and have her stay the night? I'm sure you have room, even if she has to sleep on the sofa. I'll pick her up in the morning and take her home. Please, John, do it for me as a friend." "Okay, that's fine, but you have to be there early tomorrow," I replied. I hadn't talked to Cheryl much since my divorce, and now she would be staying at my house. I returned to the group and told them I was leaving because Cheryl wasn't feeling well. I expected some teasing, but no one said anything. As I left, Phil caught up with me and asked if Dee was my girlfriend or if she had a boyfriend. I said she wasn't seeing anyone at the moment. He smiled and asked if I could give her his phone number. I agreed. Getting outside into the cold air was supposed to help Cheryl feel better, but it didn't seem to work. Dee pulled up in her car, and I helped Cheryl into the back seat before getting in myself. Dee handed me a couple of plastic bags. "Just in case, be careful. They have holes," she said. Dee drove carefully while Cheryl rested her head on my shoulder in the back seat. I noticed she was still wearing her wedding and engagement rings, which made me wonder about their meaning, especially since they had been taken off by someone else. I asked Dee about the people they had been with before. I mentioned that the bartender said they might have messed with Cheryl's drinks. I felt a bit late asking, but I checked if she felt okay anyway. She assured me she had only had 2 lemonades all night since it was her turn to drive. When I asked her about that, she explained that she and Cheryl went out about once a month for drinks and conversation, not to meet men. Feeling a bit spontaneous, I said, "She looks great in that dress. It's my favorite of hers." We stopped at a red light, and Dee smiled at me. "You're right. I think she might have been going out to meet someone. It all makes more sense now." The light turned green, and we continued our drive. I felt confused. Everything seemed unclear in my mind. When we arrived at my house, both Dee and I helped Cheryl out of the back seat. but it was harder than we expected. Dee had a set of my house keys, so I picked Cheryl up and took her inside. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, thinking about whether to let her sleep on the sofa or take her to our old bedroom. There were 2 other bedrooms, one for the baby and a spare room. The spare room had a bed that wasn't made, which Dee used when she stayed over if she felt well enough to climb the stairs. If not, she used the sofa. Dee watched me, noticing my uncertainty. "A gentleman would let her sleep in your bed. It's closer to the bathroom if she needs it," Dee suggested. I hadn't thought of that, and it made sense if Cheryl woke up confused about why I had put her there. I nodded and carried Cheryl upstairs, with Dee leading the way. Halfway up, Cheryl started to feel sick. I rushed, but it was too late. Dee heard the noise and quickly ran upstairs. By the time I reached the top, she had grabbed a waste bin from the bathroom. Unfortunately, Cheryl didn't make it in time. Thankfully, most of it landed in the bin, but some got on my shirt. The alcohol smell was strong. We entered the bedroom, and I faced a problem. Cheryl needed to be changed. I had seen similar situations before and respected them, but I felt uneasy about looking at her now. Dee noticed my hesitation and seemed to understand. "John, this is something we need to do. She's dressed, so she won't be without clothing, and I don't think she'd mind." I decided not to criticize myself this time. There were many arms and legs, but we managed. I noticed her outfit wasn't too revealing. She was wearing tights. We made Cheryl comfortable, turning her head to one side and placing the bin close by. As I looked down, Dee slipped her arm in mine and gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek. "You're a good man, John. You didn't deserve what happened. Let's go downstairs and keep the bedroom door open so we can listen for her. I haven't had anything to drink all night, so I think I'm going to grab one of your beers." Then she asked softly, "Are you staying here or on the sofa tonight?" Looking at her, I replied, "Definitely the sofa. I wouldn't want to give her the wrong impression." "What impression do you think that would be?" Without waiting for an answer, she released her arm and went downstairs. She took Cheryl's dress, which had seen better days. I reminded myself to stay calm. I went to the airing cupboard, got a spare quilt and some pillows, and headed downstairs. She was waiting for me with a couple of bottles of beer and a glass, since she knew I preferred to drink directly from the bottle. "That beer is a bit strong, isn't it, if you're driving?" "If I drank a whole pint, yes, but I'm only having half. Besides, it's the lightest beer you've got. I hope you're not turning back into the person I knew 18 months ago?" I offered a small smile. "No, I'm focusing on enjoying a few each night, only on weekends," she replied. "I saw the 1698 in there," she added. I remembered how I had spent weekends drinking too much until Dee stepped in after Cheryl's betrayal. She finished her half pint and walked toward the front door. Remembering what Phil had asked me, I called out, "Dee, Phil wants me to give you his number. Is that okay?" "Is he married or involved?" she asked. "No, he's single. It has been about a year since I've had a steady girlfriend." "Then yes," she replied. She looked at her car as some snowflakes twirled in the chilly air, giving the evening a cheerful feel. As she walked away, she turned back and said, "On one condition." I nodded. "You come to my house for a party on New Year's Eve. We can welcome the new year together. Send me Phil's number and I'll invite him too. It'll give you someone to talk to about farm stuff, and it might lift your spirits." She chuckled at her own joke. I waited until she drove around the corner. Then I closed the door and returned to the living room. I faced another choice. Should I sleep on the sofa or check on Cheryl? I decided to take the 2 half bottles of Broadside, the quilt, and the pillows upstairs to the bedroom. I chose to sleep on the floor, which turned out to be comfy. I woke up when I heard Cheryl moving toward the bathroom. I listened quietly and fell back asleep when she came back to bed. The next morning, I was up before Cheryl. I made tea and toast. It was nearly 10 o'clock, and there was still no sign of Dee. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. I heard Cheryl moving around upstairs, and soon she came down wearing my bathrobe, looking a bit messy. She pointed to the chair at the kitchen table where she used to sit and asked, "May I?" "Yes, please," I replied. I poured her some tea and slid a plate of toast toward her. She took the tea but pushed the toast back, just like I did to Dee long ago. I went to the sink, filled a glass of water, and placed it in front of her along with 2 pain relievers, just as Dee had done for me. The difference was that my troubles were of my own making, while hers came from her work friends. I felt for her and her hangover. "How did I get here?" she asked softly. "What do you remember?" I replied. There were 3 colleagues from work, Jeff, Mike, and Pete, at the bar after dinner. I had a few glasses of wine during dinner. I was trying to gather the courage to talk to you. I switched to non-alcoholic lager thinking it would help me feel more confident without getting too tipsy. "Why?" I asked. She sipped her tea. "I knew you would be there and I wanted to talk to you. We haven't spoken for almost a year and only a little since that weekend. I was hoping you'd have a drink or two so you wouldn't feel like avoiding me when I wanted to chat." "Sorry to keep asking, but why?" "Every time I try to talk to you, you shut me out. I feel bad about how I treated you. You haven't let me apologize, and I need to tell you how sorry I am for the hurt I caused and for breaking your trust." Then she seemed to gather her thoughts. "I got a letter from Gerald where he tried to take all the blame, but it's not all his fault. I have to share some of that blame. I wasn't influenced by anything. I was just weak, but that doesn't excuse my actions toward you. I liked him and cared for him. He was a friend, and when he said he was sick, I felt sorry for him. I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was incredibly hurtful. The betrayal was bad enough, but knowing I caused you more pain is something I regret deeply. I hadn't even thought about the possibility of getting pregnant, which would have added to your hurt." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "And I'm sorry we will never have the family we dreamed of." She spoke through her tears. "If I make excuses, it feels like I'm avoiding my responsibility, and I need to accept my part in this." She wiped her face on my bathrobe, sat up tall, looked at me and said, "I love you, and I will always love you. I'm truly sorry for breaking your trust and hurting you. I don't expect your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. Dee has told me what you went through during those first months, and I realize it hasn't been easy for you. I have just one request, and then I won't ask for anything else. Live your life as best as you can, find someone to love like I love you, and don't let them go." She slumped down, and it felt like a speech she had practiced. I didn't want to point out that she had asked for 3 things. She looked up and said, "I practiced that so many times and it still sounds cliché. I feel like I'm just saying this to make myself feel better. I promise I'm not." She picked up a teacup, looked inside, and frowned. She continued, "Besides the 2 times I wasn't honest with you about Gerald, I have never lied to you. I will never lie to you again. I was just trying to save my marriage when I realized you knew what had happened." She looked defeated, staring at her teacup. Then, with a nervous laugh through her tears, she said, "I know I said I had one thing to ask, but now I see I'm sitting here with an empty cup. Is there any more tea in that pot? I could really use another." I poured 2 more cups of tea, and we sat in silence for a bit. I still wondered where Dee was and hoped she was okay. I saw Cheryl lift herself up again, which was familiar from our years together. I guessed she was going to ask for something else, probably not as heavy as before. "Can I ask some questions, please?" I nodded. "How did I end up in our old bed? Did you really sleep on the floor?" I explained how we thought Jeff, Mike, or Pete had spiked her drinks, and she had been quite drunk. There was a small mishap that left Jeffrey with a sore nose. Dee and I brought her here because she didn't want to disturb Margaret and Harry's Christmas party. She looked a bit surprised. Dee had no room since her parents were visiting. I told her she had been unwell when I took her upstairs, and Dee helped her get settled in bed. I chose to sleep on the floor because I was worried about her safety. I mentioned that Dee was supposed to take her home a while ago. She seemed to accept my explanation. She said that Dee was probably giving her space, knowing she wanted to apologize. She planned to call Dee to let her know she was ready and to ask for some clothes from her parents' place. She smiled a bit and said she couldn't go home in my bathrobe since I would need it. I did have an extra one, but I didn't say that. Instead, I suggested that she go upstairs for a shower and offered her some of my jogging pants and an old sweatshirt until Dee arrived. I still had one question. "Cheryl, how much of this is planned to bring us together here to see if we can reconnect? Something feels off." "You're not entirely wrong. I knew your company was having its party there like every year at this time. I volunteered to set ours up at the same time and place. I hoped we could talk like I mentioned. I truly want to reconnect, but that wasn't the plan. I just wanted to talk. And that's all. I don't think anyone suspects, not even Dee. Honestly, I would love to spend some time with you, but not under any false reasons. That would just be another lie. I believed her. I had no reason not to. She smiled at me and went upstairs. When I heard the shower running, I grabbed a pair of jogging pants and an old sweatshirt and set them on the bed for her. After that, I went downstairs, had some more tea, and ate cold toast. About 20 minutes later, Cheryl came back down wearing the clothes I had left for her. She looked much better. She had her phone and was talking. When she came into the kitchen, I heard her say, "No, don't worry about me. Take care of your dad. I can handle things here. I might need to ask John for another favor. Bye. See you at work on Monday." Dee's dad had fallen, and she took him to the hospital. Cheryl then asked me if I could do her a favor. She explained it was a bit forward, but could I get her some clothes from her parents' place? She wasn't sure why Dee thought the Christmas party was at their house. It was actually at the golf club. Her parents were staying at the hotel next door, so no one was home. "Why can't I take you home in what you're wearing now?" I asked. "You could, and it would help me, but I'd feel better if I changed into nicer clothes. I don't want to feel out of place. I know it sounds silly, but you know how I am." She smiled nervously. I understood her worries, but I realized I didn't have anything at home that would fit her properly. This situation felt more complicated than I first thought, and I agreed to help. Cheryl took her keys and explained where everything was in her room and how her closet was organized. I figured it would take me about an hour and a half to sort everything out. I left right away and thought about telling her to make herself at home, but decided it would be better to say she could get comfortable, and I would be back soon. When I arrived at her house and let myself in, it looked very neat for a place where a party had been the night before. I found my way to her bedroom and collected all the things she needed. They were just where she said they would be. After gathering everything, I took a quick look around. It was tidy, but felt a bit bare. I noticed a couple of magazines lying around, and one had a big circle around the title, "How to Get Your Man Back." The subtitle read, "Don't be foolish enough to lose him in the first place." The magazine was 9 months old, and I looked at the article, noticing highlighted sentences. One prompt asked, "Why did you break up in the first place?" Beside some scribbled handwriting that seemed to say, "Don't see anyone else." Another highlighted part read, "Be honest with your partner and yourself," with a tick next to it. There was also a prompt that stated, "Admit your mistakes to yourself and your partner," and next to it was written, "I have." The next highlighted sentence said, "Learn from your mistakes and don't repeat them." I realized Cheryl and I hadn't talked much over the past year. I had actually spoken to her parents more than to her, so it seemed she hadn't acted on these plans. With everything gathered, I drove back to my house. When I walked in, I heard water being poured into the teapot. Cheryl was in the kitchen making tea. "That was good timing," I said. "I tracked your phone. You haven't blocked me." She went to the restroom for a moment. "The tea will be ready when I get back," she said. She poured the tea and made fresh toast, managing to eat some. She looked a lot better, much more like her old self. "I hope you don't mind, but I washed my dress a bit. I wanted to clean it before taking it to the dry cleaners, so I hung it out to dry." "John, can I ask you something?" "Depends on what it is," I answered. She held up an object. I felt uneasy. "I found this while I was washing the dress in the sink. I thought it might block your drain, and it was just sitting there." "It's something I used on the farm for pest control," I explained. "What do you use with it?" she asked. "Anything small and round, like stones or ball bearings. Fishermen use them for bait." She gazed at me with curiosity. "Do you have any?" "Yes, I have some ball bearings. Would you show me how it works?" "Not today. Maybe another time." She changed the topic. "I've put away the quilt and pillows you used last night and put fresh sheets on the bed." She looked down. "I wouldn't have minded if you had shared the bed with me. Dee and I talked about it. I didn't want to send the wrong message. I was just helping someone I cared about." As soon as I said it, I felt bad. I looked at her and said, "I'm sorry that came out wrong." "That's fine. I probably deserved it. It still hurts, though." She turned away and said softly, "I'll go get my dress now. Could you please take me home after?" She seemed formal, and I felt guilty. We got in the car, and I started driving her home. She didn't say much. We talked briefly about the weather and little things. I noticed her cheer up. She looked at me and said, "Did you read Gerald's letter?" "No, he started telling me what to do, and I don't want to hear that from someone who caused me so much trouble." I tossed it after the first paragraph. I felt frustrated again. "Oh, I wish you had read it. It might have explained a lot. Both Dee and I got one. We've shared what we learned. He is very sorry and takes a lot of the blame." Then I heard her whisper, "Some of it was my fault too. Sorry about that." She stared out the window for a moment. "I haven't heard from Gerald. I don't usually ask, but I've heard some news. He's learning Welsh and is engaged to a nice woman who has a child. People say he's changed since what happened to him. That incident had nothing to do with you, did it?" I chose not to answer. I pulled up in front of Margaret and Harry's house where their car was parked. This could be awkward. Cheryl invited me in for tea. It was nice to see Margaret and Harry again, and I hoped to find out where Dee got the idea that the gathering was at their house. They were happy to see me and welcomed me warmly. I sensed they had questions, but Cheryl spoke first. She explained how her drinks had been changed. She mentioned that Dee had said there was a get-together here, and since her parents were home, Dee suggested I look after her. I asked if the gathering was planned here. Harry said that was the plan at first, but it became too crowded, so they moved it to the golf club. They chose that place because there was a hotel next door where they could book rooms. I casually asked when they made that decision, and Margaret said it was organized in early November, about 6 weeks ago. I thought it might be a good idea to talk to Dee. Cheryl said she was going upstairs to change, and she was gone for about 5 minutes. When she came back, she looked a bit flushed. We talked about my job and what Margaret and Harry had been doing. It was a nice afternoon, and they asked me to stay for tea. I said no, thinking it might lead to them trying to set me up. When I left, Cheryl walked with me to the car. "Thank you, John. I really appreciate what you've done for me. When you were here, did you see the magazine?" "Yes, I looked at it. I think it had some good points. It's too bad it wasn't available 18 months ago. It might have saved a lot of sadness." "You're right. But that's not a magazine I used to read. I found it at the hairdresser's." She touched my arm gently. "John, can we grab a coffee sometime? I've enjoyed being around you again. He'll understand if you say no." "I don't know, Cheryl. I really don't know. Please think about it. I can see us feeling comfortable over coffee. That's where we usually talk the best." She smiled a little and shared some good moments. I remembered a moment we had shared after our 5th wedding anniversary dinner in the kitchen. "John, I have to say, I feel at ease with you and hope you feel the same. I know I made mistakes." She hesitated, then decided to say more. "I just wish you had read Gerald's letter. It might have helped a bit. I don't know. It helped Dee, but not me. My letter made me feel weak. Please just think about it." On my way home, she gave me a lot to think about. Once I got home, I made some tea and sent Phil's number to Dee. I thought about Dee for a moment. I felt she knew more than she was saying. I had a feeling the New Year's party plans had happened too quickly. I thought her parents were coming for New Year as well as Christmas. I needed to talk to Dee about this soon. I didn't want to be too forward in case I was wrong. She had become a close friend over the past 18 months. I needed a reason to see her. I didn't have a Christmas present for her yet, but I knew what I wanted. 18 months ago, we helped each other out and found out she liked raspberry gin. My favorite was apple and sage. The internet is great for finding things like where to get those types of gin. The local supermarket had both kinds, so I made a plan. I quickly checked my cupboards and decided it was time to shop for food and get some raspberry gin at the same time. Just as I was about to leave, I got a message from Dee. "Can I bring your Christmas present over? Is it something I can enjoy?" "Yes, of course. You know me better than that." I was about to go shopping. "Can we do it tonight?" That would give me a chance to get her present. "He'll be there at 6. He'll bring Chinese. Make sure the tonic water is chilled." That gave me a hint about what that evening would be like. Dee didn't live far from me, about a 20-minute walk, 15 if I walked fast, or 10 if I ran. But lately it took me about half an hour after I had been drinking. Dee arrived at 10 to 6 and walked right into the kitchen. She was usually late. I couldn't remember a time she was on time for anything. We joked in the past she would be late for her own funeral. She dropped the bag of food on the table. Digging into her shopping bag, she pulled out a bottle bag and handed it to me. I would suggest you put this under your Christmas tree, but since you're not in a festive mood, I know you don't have one. I took the gift from her and set it on the table. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of my favorite gin. This is for us tonight while we chat. I sensed that the evening was about to become more interesting. If I had any control, it was starting to slip away. I asked how her dad was doing. He was resting at home and would be fine. We enjoyed our Chinese food, and I even got a bottle of wine. It was going to be a fun evening, and luckily, tomorrow was Sunday. We moved to the lounge and sat on the sofa. Dee brought in the gin and tonic while I carried the glasses. Dee took charge of the gin bottle and poured us generous drinks. Looking at me, she said, "Cheryl called me this afternoon after you left. She was upset. She thinks she messed up." I had gone to work today wanting to gather some information. That was typical Dee, sharing something serious and then switching topics. I had learned to follow her lead months ago, so I wasn't surprised. Everything would reveal itself in time. She continued, "By the way, I told the duty manager about Jeffrey and what happened with a customer. He had heard some rumors, and I confirmed them. The 3 people involved will be let go on Monday. It's unfortunate because Mike is a good guy who just gets influenced by others. I might discuss keeping him on." We both took a sip of our drinks, and Dee went on. "I was suspicious when she showed up looking so fancy. We've gone out together many times, and she has never dressed like that. She has turned down every man who approached her. I got even more curious when we walked into the hotel and found out your company was having a party there that same night. I knew Cheryl had volunteered to organize our Christmas party, and I suspect she figured out when and where yours was and arranged ours at the same time. She had a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, which is unusual for her, and seemed quite nervous. I think she wanted to have a serious talk with you. I think she wanted to rely on the fact that you are a gentleman, and if she spoke to you in front of others, you would listen." Dee took another sip and waved for me to do the same. I took a small sip. Was this bad news? She was there to pick someone up, and that someone was you. She wants you back. She knows she made a mistake. So, my friend, what are her chances? Am I going to have to help fix things for her like I did for you? She indeed helped me when I needed it. I raised my glass to her, and Dee nodded in appreciation and continued. "You notice she still wears her rings?" I nodded. "She knows they were touched by Gerald and what that means to you, but she has told me she won't take them off until you replace them. They are the only link she has to you. Since you were late this morning, we had quite a talk. She told me she planned this gathering at the same time as my company. That was easy since we go to the same place every year, and she meant to approach you directly. You were right. She wanted to talk to you. She was sure you would be kind to her in front of your co-workers. She admitted she had too much to drink as she tried to gather the courage to express her feelings." Dee laughed. "Oh, the speech! If I've heard that once, I've heard it 1,000 times. She practices not only the words, but also her tone, pauses, looks, and gestures. How did it go?" "Probably not as well as she hoped. It came out quickly, but she really meant what she said. It wasn't just her words, but also what she showed afterward. She felt bad about her actions, and I think she felt even worse after speaking. She talked about feeling like she was making excuses. Oh, she has her reasons, but they aren't very strong. I wouldn't call them excuses." I thought about what reasons she might have. I had almost finished my drink. Dee got ready to pour me another, but I stopped her. She took one for herself, and I asked, "I guess you're not driving home tonight?" "Nope. I'm staying on this sofa. I told my parents I'm out for the night. It's been almost a year since I slept here. Do you remember the night my parents got divorced?" I chuckled to myself. "No, I only recall the first part of the bottle. After that, I don't remember much. I'm not doing that tonight." "Definitely not. That was a mess to sort out," she said. "I want you to let go of the wall you've been building so you can either find someone new or reconnect with her." I opened my mouth to respond, but Dee raised her hand and continued. I had learned to wait until she was done talking. She took a sip of her drink. "I saw you help her yesterday. Anyone would have done that. No, you tried to protect her from false stories. You didn't want to look bad, and I get that. But what stood out was how much you cared for her and how you helped her upstairs. I think you still have feelings for her. Okay, you've caught me. I do. But I don't think I can trust her again. Forgiveness feels far away. I wish you had read Gerald's letter. She stood up and went to the kitchen, returning with her handbag. I poured more tonic into our glasses. Dee took a sip and suggested adding more gin with a smile. She pulled a piece of paper from her bag. I suddenly remembered I had tossed my letter from Gerald in the trash when I went to sit down. Did she take it out? Was that what she was giving me? Holding the paper out to me, she said, "This is Gerald's letter to me. I want you to read it." I wanted to say no, but looking at her face made me think that wouldn't be wise. This time, I took a long drink. In the letter, Gerald apologized to Dee for how he treated her and the pain he caused. He admitted he spent time with her to stay close to Cheryl because he had feelings for her and thought Cheryl felt the same way. However, he did not mention all the reasons he had, which he was not proud of. He wrote that being with Dee was wonderful and talked about some fun times they had together, but I skimmed over that section. At one point, I glanced at Dee and saw her blush, as if she knew what I was reading. He also mentioned that if he didn't feel for Cheryl, he could have pursued a long-term relationship with Dee. He wrote letters to both Cheryl and me, acknowledging that I might be reluctant to read mine and asked Dee to help encourage me to do so. I noticed he didn't apologize for his actions. Well, it was too late now. I handed the letter back. "Well?" she asked. "Well, what?" I replied. "What do you think?" "The man is inconsiderate. He led you on to go after my wife, and it worked. He caused trouble in my marriage and my life." I was upset. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to break up my marriage to be with Cheryl. I finished my drink, and my head spun a bit. I reached for the bottle, but Dee was quicker, pouring me a bit more and filling my glass with tonic. I realized I couldn't fit any more gin in the glass. I thought about pouring another drink, but I remembered how hard it was when I first got the news about my divorce. "I have a letter from him to Cheryl. You should read it. Please trust me, it will help. And right now you need help," she said. She was right. She held out a sheet of paper. "Does Cheryl know you have that?" I asked. "Yes, she gave it to me a few months ago in case I could show it to you." I paused for a moment. "Does she know you're here now?" "No. She wants to get back with you. But I want you to start enjoying life again, not just going through the motions. You deserve happiness. Yes, I hope it's with Cheryl, but that's your choice." She opened her mouth as if to say more, but then closed it. After taking a sip, she said, "I didn't want to raise her hopes. Please, you should read this." I took the paper and began to read. In the letter, Gerald expressed his sorry for the hurt he caused. He shared his feelings for Cheryl, noticing she had some feelings for him too. Over time, he realized that while she cared for him, her love for me was much stronger. He even mentioned that he liked me, feeling guilty for possibly hurting a friend. He seemed to be okay with staying close, ready to step in if my marriage faced problems, which made me uneasy. Was he trying to get in between us to chase after Cheryl? He wrote about a day he wanted to make special, regretting his actions that felt unfair. He described how, in his sadness, he had made certain choices he wished he hadn't. Yet he longed for a moment together with her, thinking it would be a lasting memory. If he had known how things would turn out, he might have made different choices. He felt that by keeping everything hidden, he wouldn't hurt her marriage or her. Recognizing his mistakes, he expressed his regret again and mentioned reaching out to Dee and me, hoping she could convince me to read the letter. Dee poured more into my glass, and I noticed it was almost empty. I looked at the bottle. It was lighter, but still had enough left to help me deal with my feelings for a bit. That man wanted my wife because he cared for her. He got her to betray our trust, and he lied. We all faced the consequences of his dishonesty, though I wasn't sure who was hurt the most. Why did he write letters? Was it to feel better about the harm he caused? I wondered about this while Dee poured again. I started to feel guilt. I realized I hadn't let her explain herself or share her reasons. I told myself there could be no good reasons for what she did. Anger returned. I took a deep drink. I hardly noticed the taste of the gin. I finished my drink, set the glass down, looked at Dee, and said firmly, "Make it a strong one this time, please." "Okay, but only after you tell me what you think." The man deceives people. He uses lies to win over another man's wife and then tries to ease his guilt by apologizing. He really is a terrible person. I can't argue with that, but what about Cheryl? What will you do now that you know she was misled? I was still angry. It doesn't change the fact that she was with someone else. Can't there be a little forgiveness in there? She asked as she handed me the glass. No way. I gave the letter back to her and everything started to make sense. Do you have the letter he wrote to me? Yes, I do. It felt a bit like a secret mission. I had to time the lid of the bin with the fridge door. I have it, but I don't want you to read it now. You're not in the right frame of mind, and it's at home anyway. What does it say? It's pretty much what he said in the other 2 letters, but it's for you. I don't think he added any marks on it. Okay, if you have the letter, why didn't you bring it with you? I thought we would be having a fun time together. She laughed a little since we were enjoying ourselves. It's something you need to read when you're clear-headed. If I had it here, I might be tempted to let you see it. I will get it first thing in the morning. You really need to read it. She giggled again, stood up, and walked toward the restroom a bit unsteady. I sat there feeling puzzled. When she came back, it was my turn to go. I stood up and nearly lost my balance. Looking at the bottle of gin, I wondered if it was half empty or half full, a tricky thought for someone like me. I also stumbled to the restroom and then back again. Hey, I have a question for you. Why did you forgive her for being with your boyfriend? Dee asked. I wasn't going to forgive her. I was really angry. But then Gerald's letter came. I blamed her for taking him from me. But he was never really mine. We were just friends and I didn't see that. I knew Gerald and I weren't serious, but I enjoyed his company. After that letter, I realized it wasn't as simple as I thought. So yes, I forgave her. She looked like she wanted to say more, but took a drink instead. I just nodded. Dee then quickly changed the topic and started talking about my tasks for the New Year's party. It turned out I was in charge of the drinks, which wasn't surprising. She also mentioned that she had set up my sleeping arrangements. In the past, I had stayed in her spare room, but someone else was there this time, and I probably wouldn't be able to climb the stairs anyway. Then she asked me about Phil, what he liked and did not like. I wondered if she was serious about him. She laughed. Of course not. What's the fun in that? Then she turned serious. I've seen him around a little. The dance we had last night wasn't the first. He seems nice. He is. Please don't hurt him. We continued talking and switched from gin to strong tea that felt thick enough for a spoon to stand in it. I looked at her and saw that she had dozed off, so I laid her down and covered her with a blanket. Looking at her, I felt grateful to have her as a friend. I leaned back in my chair and fell asleep, too. I was woken by the sound of dishes in the kitchen and made my way there. Dee and I had our usual long night breakfast, tea, bacon sandwiches, and some painkillers. Around midday, Dee asked how I was feeling. I said I felt pretty good, not too bad. She went to her car and returned with a piece of paper. Sorry I didn't give this to you sooner. I didn't think it was safe for me to drive this morning, so I left it in the car, or I would have given it to you last night. I'm not sure I want to. She raised her hand and said loudly, Wait, please. I know you might not want to hear from someone who hurt you, but please give me a chance. Listen to the person who has been there for you. I think I deserve that. She was probably right. You need to read this. Trust me. Sometimes, Dee knows me better than I know myself. I held out my hand. She gave me the letter, and I started to read. Dear John, please excuse this being typed. A letter like this should be written by hand, but since my right hand is still sore from an earlier incident, I am unable to do it. I think it happened because of some misunderstanding, though I am not sure who caused it. All I know is that it hurts, and it has made me think about my life in a way I didn't like. When I look in the mirror, I don't respect the person staring back. I've hurt people I thought were friends, and most importantly, I caused pain to someone I cared about. I've heard that you are starting divorce proceedings against Cheryl. I hope you will reconsider. That was as much as I managed to read the last time I looked at this letter. I regret how things turned out. I was wrong to interfere in your relationship with Cheryl, but I do care about her and don't want to see her hurt anymore. I got close to Dee to keep in touch outside of work. At first, I thought distancing you two would give me a chance with Cheryl. However, I soon understood that she loved you, and that made me realize I would only hurt her if I tried that. Believe it or not, I even began to respect you, despite you being married to her. You are a good person, and that is why I decided to move to Wales after accepting a job there. On that Sunday, I never meant to come between you two. If I had known it would cause her so much pain and lead to your separation, I would have acted differently. I honestly thought we could keep things secret, and it would not affect anyone. I wanted to hold on to that memory as I grew older. I know I shouldn't ask, but please forgive her and take her back. Let her show you how much she cares for you, in a way she could never care for me. I will have to live with that. I still plan to take the job in Swansea. I had no idea she had promised to be home by 1. If I had known, I might have acted differently. I shouldn't have interfered in her life, but I thought that during that brief time apart from you, I could have her for myself, even if just for a moment. I admit I wanted that moment badly. I was emotional that day. I've learned that showing feelings can leave an impact, and I've used that before, but I assure you my tears were real. They were not just for something I could never have. However, those tears did not change what happened, and out of desperation I claimed I was dealing with a personal issue that affected my work. I'm sorry, John. I was truly desperate. I wanted what you had, the love and life you shared with Cheryl, even if it was only for a short while, and now I have complicated things for both of you. I wanted that last moment of closeness before she left. I managed to find a way for us to be near each other, but she gently pulled away and said, "Goodbye. We will never talk about this again." I think she was struggling with her feelings. I tried to hold her hand as we walked to her car, wanting one last connection, but she brushed me off. I knew then that there would be no more contact between us. It was a brief moment, but I felt a sense of relief. I would have my memories to carry with me. That was when the pain started. To this day, I still don't fully understand what happened. It felt like I was hit by something unseen. The authorities could not figure it out either. Knowing the trouble I caused, I now feel ashamed of that memory I once cherished. I am truly sorry. If I see you in Swansea and you seem upset, I will be ready to accept any consequences for my actions. May I suggest that if you feel the need for sports equipment, consider getting a complete set. It can really make a difference. I care about you, and I regret the hurt I caused you and Cheryl. I especially owe a big apology to Dee. I like her, but I never intended for it to last. I was close to her to stay near Cheryl. It's a shame because Dee is kind and enjoyable, and I didn't treat her as well as I should have. I plan to apologize to both Cheryl and Dee. Please, can you find it in you to forgive her and welcome her back? Gerald. I held up the letter and asked, "Has Cheryl seen this?" "No, it's for you," she replied. "But you have read it." "Yes, I wanted to see if it would help or hurt you." "I thought it would help, did it?" "Not really. It doesn't change anything. She was with another man." She looked at me sharply. "You are a tough person. A tough person with a broken heart," I said back. She stood up, looked down at me and said, "Then give the woman who hurt you a chance to make things right. She cares about you, and you still care about her. I saw it last Friday. Please give her a chance." She fell back into her chair. "Sorry, I'm not saying what you should do. That's up to you. I lost my cool. I'm sorry. I just need more tea." She stood and took my mug to refill it. She sat down again, looking serious. "I shouldn't share this, but it's not exactly a secret either. A couple of months after the divorce, Cheryl fell into a deep depression. I opened my mouth to ask more, but Dee raised a hand. She barely went out except for work, and I think she got a couple of warnings for her job. She seemed angry a lot and sometimes took it out on her coworkers. Mostly, though, I think she was angry at herself. Harry and Margaret sent her to a therapist, and that helped her. The issue was she blamed herself for hurting you and felt she was making excuses. It was a downward spiral into her sadness. I went with her to one meeting because I was Gerald's girlfriend. I didn't understand much, but the therapist was very good. After a few months, she seemed to recover a bit. That's when we started going out for drinks. John, she was really struggling with the pain she caused you and her parents. I don't think she has forgiven herself yet. She just hides it well. I'm not a therapist, but I feel like she was getting in trouble at work on purpose to face consequences. Strange, but she felt she got off easy in the divorce, and that didn't sit right with her. Maybe you should have talked to her about it. Dee tilted her head and smiled slyly. Maybe you should have that talk with her now. We discussed the New Year's party and she told me her parents wouldn't be there, which was good. We filled the time with light talk until she felt ready to drive. As she stood by the door, she said, "Figure out if you're happier with her or without her." Then she left. I was frustrated. I threw myself into work for the last few days before Christmas. I was invited by Margaret and Harry for Christmas dinner, but I knew what they were planning, so I said no. I was also invited by Dee, and since her parents were around, that felt safer. I accepted as long as we didn't mention Cheryl. Some of us went into work during the days after Christmas. Phil was excited about the New Year's party while I started to feel anxious. I knew Cheryl would be there, and I suspected it was a setup. On New Year's Eve, I collected the drinks Dee had ordered for the party and brought along some of my glasses since Dee didn't have many. I made sure there was no gin as I wanted to stay sober and see how the night would go. Phil helped me with the drinks. After he set down the boxes, he gave Dee a warm hug. I had a feeling they had seen each other since the last party. It was none of my business, so I wished them well. My next task was to gather food, so I left them to chat. As expected, Cheryl arrived alone. She looked nice. While I was talking with Phil and Dee, she came over to greet us and then joined some folks from the bank. I was waiting for the right moment, but I knew it wasn't time yet. I was too clear-headed. I played the role of host, making sure everyone had drinks and food, which helped me avoid drinking too much. There were a few familiar faces in the crowd, and we chatted casually, creating a relaxed atmosphere. I noticed the mistletoe Dee had hung and made sure to keep my distance from it. I also stayed away from Cheryl, sticking to my own space. I was careful about my drinking, only having from bottles or cans that I opened myself, avoiding any worries. I reminded myself, these are my friends, no need to be anxious. I felt myself begin to relax a bit more while still sticking to my plan. I found a beer I liked, and thankfully, there was plenty of it available. I wanted Old Crafty Hen, but settled for the lighter Old Speckled Hen instead. I saw Dee go outside. It was hot and loud inside, and I guessed she wanted some fresh air. I followed her outside where she sat on the garden wall, and I joined her. "Are you trying to set me up?" I asked Dee directly. She answered quickly. "Yes, and it's not just me. Her parents are in on it too. The only one who might not see it is Cheryl, but she really wants to reconnect with you." "That's not happening." Dee stood up, looking down at me, and spoke with concern. "You really don't see it, do you? You're only hurting yourself and Cheryl. Hasn't she been through enough? Only you can decide when she has faced enough for what happened. She feels responsible for the distance between you two, and it's deeply affecting her. She can manage at work, but struggles outside of that. And you look unhappy most of the time, hardly smiling or laughing unless you've had too much to drink. It worries me. You are still punishing yourself for something that was out of your control. You miss her. You haven't moved on, and everyone saw at the Christmas party that you still care for her. The way you held her, looked at her, and backed her up when Jeffrey said hurtful things was clear. You even took some blame. The only person who didn't realize was you. I noticed how you looked at her." She paused. "Do you remember when you gently touched her face?" I shook my head. "And the way you cared for her during that weekend. So stop hurting yourself and at least talk to her. See if there's a chance to forgive her and move forward, whether together or apart. Just take a step to move on." She sat back next to me, a bit out of breath. "You won't forget, but the memory will fade. When it does, you'll be able to move on. From what I can tell after the letter, there might be a chance for forgiveness." She sighed. "Anyway, I'm tired of taking care of you. Let someone else help you." I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, hurt, and then anger. "Sorry for bothering you. I'll just leave and not trouble you anymore." I got up quickly. I thought we helped each other, but I guess I was wrong. I turned to walk away, realizing I had to go home on foot. I hadn't drunk a lot, but enough that I couldn't drive. Then, someone grabbed my arm. Dee pulled me around and hugged me tightly. "Stop, please wait. That didn't come out right. I told you before that just going through work, gym, and sleep isn't good for you. You're my best friend, but it's time I stepped back and let Cheryl help you." She looked straight at me, serious. "Yes, you helped me a lot. I have to admit that helping you took my mind off my own problems, but what I faced was nothing compared to your situation. Gerald and I were not meant to last, and I knew that. But you made promises and planned a future. I lost hardly anything compared to you. She gently showed she cared. Look, in about an hour, it will be a new year, and you should use that chance to start fresh with Cheryl, or at least talk to her. I realized I had stepped into a situation I wasn't ready for. Dee offered me another friendly gesture and went back inside. Was I really feeling upset? I decided to find out. I walked back inside, relieved to be out of the cold. I looked around and saw Phil and Dee, their arms around each other. I went to the kitchen and got drinks for all three of us. When I came back to the lounge, they noticed me, and Dee gave me a nervous smile while Phil grinned, clearly enjoying the moment. It was a bit awkward handing them their drinks since Dee's glass was still full. She quickly finished her drink. As I handed a drink to Phil, I asked him, "Hey, buddy, can I ask you something?" I didn't give him a chance to respond. Am I a grumpy person? Yeah, since you broke up with Cheryl, you've been pretty grumpy. You're fine when you're busy with work, but otherwise you seem down. And when we go out, it's only after a few drinks that you start to feel better. I looked at Dee. She glanced at Phil, who just shrugged. I had asked, and sometimes people tell uncomfortable truths. I patted him on the shoulder and said, "Thanks for that. I'll try not to be such a gloomy person going forward." He smiled and gave me a brief hug, saying, "We know it's been hard, so we put up with you. You're good at your job." He stepped back next to Dee, putting his arm around her. They looked good together. I smiled at Dee and nodded. That was my way of saying thank you. I left them together and went to the kitchen, where a group of friends had gathered. The best parties always happen in kitchens or on staircases. It was almost midnight, and I was pulled back into the lounge. The television was loud with Jules Holland's annual Hootenanny counting down. I found myself singing Auld Lang Syne at the top of my voice. I'm not sure if it was planned, but I had Dee on one side and Cheryl on the other. After we finished, Dee hugged me tightly. She turned back to Phil with her arms wide open. I smiled, but he didn't get the same gesture. I turned and saw Cheryl. I heard her say, "Please, just come closer." I'll admit I was a little tipsy, but I leaned in and she wrapped her arms around me. We shared a moment, and I felt a tear on my face. She pulled back, looking at me, and said, "It's a new year, a time for new beginnings. I'm asking you just this once, please give me another chance. I will not let you down." I pulled away and said, "I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm scared." I returned to the others in the kitchen and started cleaning up around them. It was getting close to 1 o'clock and things were calming down. The music had slowed. I was talking to people on the other side of the room, away from Cheryl, cautious because I knew what Dee wanted but wasn't sure how she would go about it. I noticed Dee give Phil a small signal and then walk toward me with her arms open. I couldn't say no. She hugged me, and that was when I realized the music had stopped. "This is for you," Dee said. Then I heard Lucy Thomas's lovely voice singing, "When you try your best but don't succeed." It was Coldplay's Fix You. I said quietly, "You have helped me. You have done a great job." "No, I have done my best, but you can be so much better." They must have practiced this. Dee stepped back, and suddenly Cheryl was there with her arms around me. She sang softly, "I will try to fix you," right on cue. Then she said gently, "I hurt you, please let me help you. It's my job, not Dee's. I care about you. I don't know. I don't want to get hurt like that again. I'm not asking you to make a lifelong promise. I'm just asking you to give me a chance. We can work something out. I'm not asking to move in right now, although I would like to. I miss you. Please just think about it. I'm going to grab you a drink. A proper one." She returned with a beer, the top off. I lifted it up and looked at it. She gave me a curious look, and I said, "Just making sure you didn't mess with it." I wasn't sure where that thought came from. Maybe I wasn't as sober as I thought. She smiled. "If I thought that would work without upsetting you, I would have tried it, but that wouldn't be honest." She put her arm around my waist, and then Phil and Dee came over, and we started chatting. It felt so easy. None of us were very sober, but I wasn't as drunk as I had been before. People had left to go home, and there were just the four of us left. Dee looked at me and said, "You know where the quilts are? You two can sleep down here. Cheryl has your old bed." That was that. Phil slept on the floor with plenty of quilts to keep it comfy. I didn't even notice his snoring. I lay there half awake, thinking about what I should do. A couple of hours later, I felt someone cozy up next to me. I opened my eyes, and it was Cheryl. "Please, I just want to be near you. I have missed you." I didn't have the heart to turn her away. In fact, I didn't want to. She was looking at me. "Go to sleep. I will take care of you." I fell asleep. But before I closed my eyes, I saw that the quilt on the floor was empty. I woke up feeling a bit confused. Cheryl seemed to sense this and said softly, "You can relax if you want." I was tempted, but I gently shook my head. I wasn't sure what she meant. We were interrupted by Dee coming down the stairs with Phil behind her. They were both smiling. Then she reached the bottom of the stairs and said to me, "John, please get the toast ready and show Phil where everything is so he can do it next time. Cheryl, can you put the kettle on for tea? I'll make the coffee. Come on, everyone." She had a cheerful bounce in her step. I stared at her for a moment, not moving. "Okay, please." It was a silly routine we had. Everything felt normal, but I still sensed something wasn't quite right. We gathered around the table with tea, coffee, toast, strawberry and raspberry jam, marmalade, and Marmite. Phil seemed to like Marmite. He was an interesting guy. We shared a good laugh about the funny and silly things from last night. As I poured more coffee for Cheryl and filled my teacup from the teapot, I wondered if all of this was meant to make me feel comfortable with her. I did feel relaxed when we were close last night and again this morning on the sofa. As I walked back, I noticed Phil holding Dee's hand under the table. If there was some plan, that wasn't part of it. When I returned to my chair, Cheryl smiled at me, and her kind smile felt real. I noticed Dee and Phil seemed to be at ease with each other, which left me confused. What did I truly want? I sat down, realizing I needed time to think things over. I took a sip of my tea and said, "That was a lovely evening. Thank you, but I really must head home. I have some things to think about." I paused. "Phil, see you at work. Dee, just let me know when you want to catch up for a drink." I stood up, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cheryl looking down. I was about to say goodbye to her when Dee stood up, looking very serious. "No, you're not leaving yet. Sit down," she said. Phil seemed shocked by her tone, but I stayed standing. "Before you leave, you need to tell Cheryl that you'll either not see her again or that you'll take her out for coffee next week. Otherwise, I won't speak to you anymore." Her frustration was clear. I looked at her and said, "I care for you as a friend, but please don't try to control my choices." I couldn't express the anger she felt, but I meant what I said. "Let me share some truths," she replied. She mentioned how I had been distant and how Phil noticed it as well. She talked about how I had supported Cheryl when she needed help and how we interacted after the Christmas party. Then she pressed on. "When was the last time you took a break?" "September, I think." "It was actually June. I meant a real break, not just a week of chores and relaxing at home." She pointed out the bags under my eyes, saying I looked tired. I hadn't had a real vacation for a long time, probably not since I was with Cheryl. She was right. I felt worn out. She continued, "I've tried to help you get away from this work, gym, eat, sleep, repeat routine, followed by weekend outings. Yes, I know we went out together, but that was just to take care of each other. I have a life beyond that. You don't, and Cheryl helped you with that. I've done what I can." Dee then sat down and said, "Okay, you two, it's time to go. Phil's going to help me finish cleaning up, and then we're going out for dinner." Since we were asked to leave, I gathered my things. Cheryl came up beside me. "Can you please give me a ride home? I'm sure my parents would like to see you and wish you a happy new year. We should let the others have some time alone." I noticed a hint of emotion in her eyes. This felt like a chance to talk while driving. I was tempted. Much of what they said made me think. Was I better off with her or without her? Was she truly sorry for the past? I would need to ponder that. When we arrived at her parents' house, I was welcomed in. We shared tea and chatted. Harry asked how work was going and if there were any interesting projects lately. I could see hope on Margaret's face, and thankfully there were no awkward questions. Cheryl walked with me to my car, and as I was getting in, she said, "Please, just come for coffee with me sometime. Think about it." "No," I replied. Her expression changed, and I could see she was disappointed. Dee and Phil were right. I had been feeling down, lonely, and tired. I had to figure things out, but I needed an answer first. I'll try to book a table at the Rose and Crown for dinner tomorrow evening. I think we need more than just coffee for this. A smile returned to her face, and she waved goodbye. Then I had a realization. I had been waiting for small signs. The whole evening had shown me that things could be better with Cheryl. They might be correct, but I needed clarity about one main question first. I went home feeling more puzzled than ever, especially since the start of the year. I managed to get a table for dinner. When I picked her up from her parents' house, she looked lovely and well put together. I thought she might wear something fancy, but she chose a simpler style. The food was good, and I sipped tonic water while we talked about the past year since our divorce. She shared stories about the people she had been training, while I talked about some of the projects I worked on and our future plans. When the coffee arrived, I knew it was time to ask my question. I took a sip, leaned back in my chair, looked at her, and asked, "Why?" "I knew you would ask this," she said. "I've been waiting for it and thinking about it a lot. I have no good excuses. I even saw a psychiatrist who confirmed some of my suspicions. I felt pity for him, liked him as a friend, and let my feelings lead my choices. You warned me about that and offered to be there to help me, but I turned you down. That must have hurt." "It did, but not as much as the other issues," I replied. "I thought I could convince him that the job in Swansea was best for him. My plan was to be there for just an hour. I never imagined he would take advantage of the situation. He was our friend, your friend. Friends don't betray each other." "When he said he was unwell, I believed him right away. You don't lie to friends. It turns out he wasn't a real friend. He asked if we could share a moment to help him through his troubles. I raised my hand to show I was married, but he just took it and said, 'For this little while, you are not married.' He set a timer on his phone. For the next 59 minutes, I thought I could help him. When the alarm went off, I would put my rings back on and return to my life as if nothing had happened. I thought I could forget what happened, believing I was helping a friend. My psychologist pointed out that he took advantage of my feelings and my kindness. He knew I was feeling vulnerable because I was trying to help a friend move so far away. Moving away would hurt Dee as well. He manipulated those feelings, and worst of all, I fell for it. Halfway through, I realized I was doing something wrong, but I couldn't stop. He seemed genuinely happy, and I gave him what he wanted, but I lost something important in myself. I didn't enjoy it. I felt uneasy. I thought I could push the memory to the back of my mind. She looked down, tears rolling down her cheeks. I never considered the bigger picture. I was just trying to help a friend. Looking back, I think if he had thought about what was happening, it might have broken the moment, and I would have seen the truth. After we wrapped things up, I needed to head home. I cleaned up and started for the door, and he followed me. He tried to show some warmth, but I wasn't comfortable, so I gently pushed him away. He wanted to hold my hand as we walked to my car, but it didn't feel right, so I let go. Suddenly, he began to act upset. "I'm really sorry," he said. She looked at me through her tears. "I'm so ashamed that I was so naive and that I let you down." She wiped her face with a tissue, looking overwhelmed. Standing up, she said, "I need to go home. I'll take a taxi." I reached out and held her hand. "No, you shouldn't go home like this. Let's go back to my place so you can freshen up. What would your parents think if I sent you home like this?" She seemed to relax in the car, and then I asked her, "Who else have you talked to about what happened?" "You're the first person I've told the whole story to, besides my therapist, that is." "This might sound odd, but do you feel any better?" She answered right away, "I don't know. Part of me does, but part of me feels like I'm just making excuses, like I'm trying to build a story for your sake." I noticed her adjusting in her seat to face me. "I feel like everything I say is just a poor excuse. I'm sorry." When we arrived at the house, we went inside and I made some coffee. She went upstairs to the bathroom and came back looking much better a little later. "You didn't change anything?" I didn't feel it was necessary. We sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee. I had more questions, but I hesitated, unsure if it was the right time. I needed to know more before deciding what to do. "May I ask some more questions?" "You can ask anything. I promise I will always be honest with you. Those 2 lies I told about not being truthful with Gerald still bother me. So, go ahead." "What did you do about Gerald?" I could see her thinking. There were things I did and things I didn't tell anyone, even my psychiatrist. The next day, I went to work and filed a complaint. HR had to wait until he was out of the hospital before they could act. They expected it to be my word against his. However, he didn't deny it. He simply had no comment. This confused HR as they had never faced such a situation before. Most people either admit to complaints or deny them, but Gerald did neither and chose silence. As a result, the bank rushed his transfer to Swansea and gave him a warning. Before Gerald was released from the hospital, I went to apologize to Dee. She listened until I mentioned his condition. Then she told me that he had bragged about never missing a day of work, even during the pandemic. At that moment, I realized he had not been honest with me, and I felt foolish. Reflecting on that time, she said, "That's when Dee told me. You got fooled by him too." I think that was when she started to forgive me. Taking a sip of her coffee, she continued, "I've never shared what I really wanted to do." Her voice became strong. I wanted to find a way to confront him and make him understand how his actions affected others. I wanted to keep pushing until he recognized the hurt he caused. But I knew that would only lead to more trouble for me, and people would see me as someone who betrayed my husband. She finished her coffee, realizing it had gone cold. On his first day back at work, Dee and I made sure to talk to him alone. We confronted him and asked if he had lied. He quickly admitted that he had, and that he was sorry. He said if he had known what would happen, he wouldn't have acted that way. Dee slapped him, and the sharp sound seemed to echo in the quiet bank. "So, who knows about your issue with Gerald?" "Well, besides the four of us, only my parents know. Some people at the bank, like HR, suspect it, but no one is speaking up," he replied. Dee looked at me and said, "I want to keep it that way." "Why?" I asked, feeling like I already understood her reasons. She replied, "I have a lot on my mind. If this got out, it would reflect badly on me and show disrespect to my husband. I want to protect him because he is not weak. I also need to guard my parents. They would be upset if they found out." As she wiped away a tear, she continued, "They are already worried about me. My priority is to protect those I love, especially those I've disappointed." I felt like I had let her down too, but only she and her parents knew what really happened. When she began crying again, I walked over to her. I took her in my arms and we went to the lounge. I sat her down and went to make more coffee. I wanted a drink for myself, but I needed to drive her home. Taking a taxi felt wrong. When I returned, she had fallen asleep, so I covered her with a throw from the sofa. I sat down in an armchair and watched her. I decided to give her another chance, unsure of how it would all work out. About half an hour later, she woke up, saw me staring, and smiled. "John, I'm sorry for falling asleep. I should go home now." "I can see you're upset," she said, her eyes shining with feelings. "No, it'll take you home. It's starting to snow, and your dad might not want you to drive in this weather," I replied. As we walked to the car, the drive to her parents' house was quiet. When we arrived and she reached for the door, I said firmly, "Hold on." She looked surprised as I got out, opened the door and helped her out. "I'm not sure how this is going to go. I have some things to figure out in my head, but can we go out for a drink this week?" I asked. She smiled and hugged me. "Absolutely, just let me know when. Just so you know, this may be hard for me. Don't worry, I will do anything to win you back. Let's not go too far with that. Some things are not an option." I smiled and she smiled back. "Okay, not everything. There are still some things I won't do." With a cheerful bounce in her step, she walked up the path to her parents' house. She paused at the door and waved goodbye just as the snow began to fall heavily. I got home, and just 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Cheryl. "Thank you. You won't regret giving me a chance." I was halfway through a long drink when my phone rang. It was Dee. "So, how did it go?" "I'll share if you tell me about your day with Phil." "No way. I don't ask about your personal life, so don't question me about mine," she giggled. "Come on, how did it go?" "We talked a lot, and we're going out for dinner later this week." "That's great. I had a question brewing that I wanted to ask in person." "Could I stop by for a drink? I could really use one," I said after taking a sip. "Of course, Phil is still here," she replied. I knew I wouldn't be able to drive after my drink. I had some tough questions for my best friend. I took a little over 20 minutes to get there through the snow. It was cold, but luckily it wasn't too windy. When I arrived, a drink was waiting for me, and its reddish color hinted that it might have rhubarb in it. I took a long sip. It was a nice mix, not too strong. However, it turned out to be raspberry. I didn't waste any time. Sitting across from them, I said, "Okay, was that an attempt to bring me and Cheryl back together?" Phil looked at Dee, puzzled. "I've been waiting for hints about you getting me and her together. The dance was clever, but that was the only one I noticed." Dee continued to smile. "So, do you think there's a chance for you two to get back together?" She didn't answer my question, which I was used to. "I don't know, but I'm going to try. So, what was the plan?" "Well, besides the dance, which was clever, there wasn't much else. The main idea was to get you two in the same place and let things happen naturally. But you kept leaving, so I tried to help. She really regrets how things ended between you two. I've made it clear that I want you to move on, hopefully with Cheryl. She wants you back. But there wasn't a big plan. I guess the whole evening was a bit planned, really." She smiled. "But it wasn't aimed at you. I wanted to bring this guy closer." With that, she wrapped her arm around Phil's. He looked a bit confused, but he would get used to it. I had another raspberry gin and tonic before heading home. It was Friday night, and after a few messages, Cheryl pulled up at my door. She was going to drive to the restaurant so I could enjoy a couple of beers. Snow was expected early in the morning, so we would be fine for the night. The restaurant wasn't busy. Sensible people were staying inside. After a nice meal and chatting about light topics, we found ourselves by the restaurant's fire. We sat in comfortable silence as Cheryl took my hand, enjoying the warmth of the fire. Part of me wanted to pull my hand away, but I didn't, so I let her hold it. Dee's plan seemed to be working. I felt better than I had in months, especially while sober. It had just started to snow lightly when we got back to my place. I invited Cheryl in for a drink, and she agreed, saying tea would be nice. While I was making it, Cheryl leaned on the kitchen door frame and said, "I see you have the fire ready to light. Can I do it?" "The one in the restaurant reminded me how nice they are. My parents don't have one." "Sure you know where the matches are?" I replied. She smiled and held up the box of matches, giving it a little shake. "I thought you wouldn't mind, so I brought them." With that, she went back into the living room, and I heard a match strike, followed shortly by the sound of the fire starting up. I walked back into the living room with a tray of tea, and the fire was cheerfully blazing. "I see you still use the cheese wax as a fire starter." "Yes, it works well. If it works, why change it?" We sat and talked about the changes we had made to the house since we bought it, and the funny things that happened while we worked on it. I felt the atmosphere between us, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to change it. We finished the pot of tea, each having 2 cups. Cheryl then said, "It's getting late. I should head home before the snow comes." She paused, maybe hoping I would ask her to stay longer. Trust me, I wanted to. Cheryl gave a nervous little laugh, saying she needed to freshen up before heading home, not wanting to get caught in the cold. Knowing it was cold outside, we said our goodbyes inside before I opened the front door. I hugged her and told her I would see her next week. She smiled at that. When I stepped outside, I saw that snow had arrived early. There was at least 6 inches of snow on the roads, and it was still falling. It was hard to see. For someone not used to driving in such weather, it could be tricky, especially with the freezing temperatures. "It looks like you might be better off staying the night," she said, looking up at me. "As much as I would like to, it's a bit early for that." "You'll go home. I'll be careful and won't take any risks," I replied. "It's not worth the chance of getting stuck and blocking the snowplows. Plus, you just got the fire going nicely," she pointed out. "Is that your way of saying I should stay?" Cheryl asked with a laugh. "Yes, I think staying is the safest choice. Now let's add some more logs to that fire and enjoy the warmth." She smiled and said, "Okay, can I have a drink now, please? Not a gin and tonic, though I've heard stories about that. I have a couple of affordable bottles of red wine. Will that work? Sharing a bottle of wine with you, no matter how simple, will always feel special." I helped her with her coat and went to get the wine. I overheard her on the phone with her mother, explaining that the snow was so heavy that she was staying over. I noticed she didn't say where. We settled in front of the fire and continued talking about the house and about Phil and Dee, who seemed to be getting along well. Cheryl mentioned she hadn't seen Dee so happy with someone since Gerald left. She looked down, reflecting on the past. Any mention of that time always stirred up difficult feelings for both of us. Cheryl quickly moved on and asked if I thought Phil and Dee would get married. I told her that from what I had seen, I would be surprised if they weren't married by next Christmas. She linked her arm through mine, and I let her. I'm glad you kept the fire going. I see you've been using it. Looking at the flames, I admitted, sometimes it's the only warmth and comfort I had. I would sit here, sipping my drink and just watching the fire. Cheryl gently turned my face to look at her. There were tears in her eyes. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. I love you and I want to help you heal. I'm not whole without you, and by supporting you, I can heal too. Like you and Dee helped each other, she said softly. She shifted closer on the sofa and took my face in her hands, resting her forehead against mine. Please, she whispered, let me help you start healing. Right here, right now. She stood up and stepped back for a moment, her eyes fixed on mine. There was something genuine in her expression. A silence filled the space between us, heavy with unspoken memories and shared history. I felt the warmth from the fire nearby. She reached out and took my hands, holding them tightly. Then she gently pulled me down with her to sit on the carpet in front of the flames. We sat there together in the soft light, the room quiet except for the sound of the crackling fire. There was nothing rushed or dramatic, just two people reconnecting after a long time apart, sitting close, letting the moment speak for itself. Oh my goodness, that feels so nice. Please keep going, she whispered to me. I continued, feeling a strong connection between us. Suddenly I felt her hold me tighter, her embrace growing warmer. I paused for a moment to make sure she was comfortable, but she said, No, please stay close, just a little longer. She gently kissed me, stroked my face, and said, Thank you so much. I really needed this. As we sat on the carpet in front of the fire, I was mostly dressed while she wore cozy clothes. I pulled back slightly to not disturb the moment, grabbed a blanket from the sofa, and wrapped it around her. After pouring her another glass of juice and adding logs to the fire, I felt this cozy spot was perfect for us. I went upstairs to fetch a quilt and returned downstairs. We wrapped ourselves in the quilt, creating a warm environment. Her hand rested on my chest, and her head found a comfy spot on my shoulder. It felt familiar and comforting. I thought about how special this moment was. What's that smile for? She asked. I hadn't realized I was smiling, but I was. The plan worked, I replied. Cheryl looked at me with curiosity. What plan? Dee wanted us to meet so I would see that being with you makes me happier than being alone. She said she did all she could to support me, but now she has someone new in her life and needs to focus on him. I understand. So yes, it was a plan, and even though I tried to be careful, I still fell for it. But you know what? I don't mind. Cheryl looked up at me and said, I understand. I think she used me too. I've been open about wanting you back, and I will do anything to make that happen. She laughed quietly. Okay, I know some things are off limits, but pretty much anything else is on the table. I think she saw that, and I don't mind either. I woke up a few times during the night to add logs to the fire to keep us warm. By morning, I found Cheryl in my arms. As I laid there thinking about what might happen next, I noticed she was awake and watching me. I've known you long enough to see that look. I don't know how this will go either. I can't just move back in right away, but let's keep exploring this relationship. She scooted away from me, sat up, and said, I think it's time for breakfast. She got up and I watched her move. I appreciate that she's easy to look at. I went to grab a couple of bathrobes. We sat together eating toast and drinking tea, and I had to ask her something. I'm sorry to change the mood, but do we need to talk about anything? We weren't careful last night. I was hoping my plan from the Christmas party would work, so I've been back on the pill to be prepared just in case. I wouldn't want to put you in a tough spot. If we decide to have kids, it will be a decision for both of us, and of course nature, she explained softly. I understand that after how things went last time, you might be hesitant about having kids with me or wanting a full relationship, but I want you to know I care about you and won't hurt you again. It started slowly with her bringing a wash kit and some makeup. Then she started leaving some clothes at my place, and soon, She was spending more time here than at her parents' house. We settled back into our routine, but she never asked to move in. After about 5 months, I finally brought it up. The next day, we moved her things from her parents' house. Then she surprised me. On her first day back from work, she handed me a piece of paper. "John, prenuptial agreements aren't legally enforced in the UK, so this is a contract our lawyers created. It might not hold up in court, but if I sign it, they say a judge would respect it. I won't have any claim to this house or anything you own, no matter what I invest in it. If we were to part ways, I would only take what I put in yesterday." I was taken aback. That felt like a real commitment, even more than a marriage license. We settled into a comfortable life, perhaps better than before. Her wish to rebuild our relationship seemed genuine. Neither of us was interested in sharing. It wasn't part of my plans anyway. Then something expected happened. We didn't know when, but we were out with Dee and Phil at the Red Lion for Dee's birthday. After we finished eating, Phil stood up, took Dee's hand, and asked if she could step outside with him for a moment. I didn't think much of it until I heard Dee's joyful squeal when they came back. She was emotional, tears of happiness on her cheeks, showing off the ring Phil had given her. It was a lovely night. I was the best man, and Cheryl was the chief bridesmaid. The wedding went smoothly. During the bouquet toss, Dee aimed for Cheryl, but Cheryl didn't try to catch it. The bouquet bounced off her and landed at her feet. I asked Cheryl, "Are you going to pick that up?" She shook her head. Traditionally, the woman who catches the bouquet is seen as the next to marry. But if you're not going to pick it up, I would be happy to help. I bent down, picked up the bouquet, and said, "Please take this." I smiled, and she whispered, "Does this mean what I think it means? Or am I hoping for too much?" "It does," I replied. She accepted the flowers with a big smile. I gently reminded her, "This is Dee and Phil's day. We'll have ours later." The wedding breakfast continued pleasantly. In the past, only the best man would speak, but now everyone seemed eager to share. I did my part, telling light-hearted stories about Phil and a few funny things about Dee, while her father shared memories from her childhood. Dee couldn't resist teasing me a bit, but she really glowed when she spoke about Phil. Phil stood up and said, "Enough talking, let's celebrate," before he sat back down, which was a good idea. After Dee danced with Phil and then with her father, she came over and playfully took me away from Cheryl. "I saw you give the bouquet to Cheryl, and she seemed very happy. Does that mean what I think it means?" "Yes, but now is not the time or place. This is your wedding, and today is for you and Phil. Nothing should overshadow that." "Do you have the ring?" "Yes, but she shouldn't wear those old ones. They don't fit anymore." "She keeps them because they remind her of you, even if they were never really right for her. Where is the ring?" "It's at home. Where else could it be?" "Then I want you to get it and propose to her here." "No, this is your wedding, and I don't want to take the attention from you." "What would people think?" "They might think I'm trying to take the spotlight." "Please, John, it would mean a lot to me to see my two best friends together again. That would be the best gift." "What about Phil?" "I know I seem bossy, but Phil and I share duties. This time, he will follow my idea. Let's go ask him." We found Phil and talked to him quickly. He was happy because he noticed me giving the bouquet to Cheryl, and so did many others. I hurried home, glad I had only one glass of wine to celebrate the couple. As I was leaving, I saw Dee on the phone. Where did she get that from in her wedding dress? Who was she calling? Never mind, I rushed home. When I got back, my parking space was taken. I recognized the car Harry and Margaret's. Her parents were here. I guess that's who Dee was calling. That was good. When I entered the reception, I couldn't find Harry and Margaret anywhere. Cheryl ran up to me. "Where have you been? Phil said you were busy. Isn't it time to relax and have fun?" The music stopped. Dee and Phil approached the DJ, and he handed the microphone to Dee. Phil took it from her and shared a quiet moment with her. She nodded. He turned to the crowd. "Dear friends and family, you are about to see something my wife has wanted for a long time." He put his arm around her. "She asked for this to happen now. This is a special moment that adds to our wedding, and my dear wife is about to get emotional." He looked at me and said, "Over to you, my friend." The crowd turned to us. Cheryl looked surprised as I reached into my pocket and pulled out the box. I meant to kneel down, but before I could, she hugged me happily. The audience clapped and cheered. Harry and Margaret were next to us, giving hugs, with Margaret smiling through tears. Harry, still in his gardening clothes, joined in the fun. Dee hugged us too, tears of joy on her cheeks. Phil was right. We all stepped back, and I took Cheryl's left hand, gently taking off her old rings and putting them in my pocket. Then, I placed the engagement ring on her finger. Harry and Margaret went home to change before returning to the celebration. We partied late into the night. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony. Dee and Phil stood by us as best man and chief bridesmaid. She was the only one. Dee looked especially lovely as her pregnancy started to show. Life became calm, and it felt good. After everything we went through, it was probably for the best. I wouldn't wish what we experienced on anyone. A year later, we shared that Cheryl was expecting. Little Dee arrived 2 weeks later, just like her namesake. Did I think about visiting Swansea with a baseball bat? It crossed my mind for a while, but I didn't follow through. I sold the rings and donated the money to a charity for the armed forces. You can care for more than one person, but there are many choices to make along the way, and not always the right ones.